Chapter 3044. Including some expensive and rare props. Regardless of the mission taker's level, you can buy them. It's a benefit from the organization. There are very rare props. This was a shopping voucher. Ning Shu asked, "When will such a product be released?" "Depends on Uncle's mood." Ning Shu was speechless. So capricious. Anyway, she hadn't seen a point-based product for so long. It had probably been hundreds of years. Did the organization have some misunderstanding about time? How could they not release a product for hundreds of years? When the point-based products were released, she had to snatch some. Anyway, points were useless. The silver-haired man said, 1,000 merit points. You need merit points for this kind of question? Ning Shu looked at the silver-haired man in shock. You asked a question and I answered it. You have to pay a consultation fee. Ning Shu said, if I ask you, are you doing well? And you come back, do I have to pay a fee? The silver-haired man said, yes, I answered you again. 1,001 merit points. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn. She couldn't afford to offend him. She couldn't argue with him. Ning Shu took out 1,001 merit points. She asked for some merit points after greeting him. Ning Shu kept her mouth shut. She needed money to talk here. She couldn't ask anything that wasn't nutritious. Knowing that she wouldn't become an idiot, Ning Shu walked out of the consultation room. She tiptoed, walked in circles, and hummed a tune. Although she was frightened, the result was good. Her mental strength would become stronger in the future. She might be able to build a space tunnel to pick up fragments by herself. She had to earn some money by relying on someone else's tunnel. If she helped others pick up fragments, wouldn't she have to give some money to the person who built the tunnel for her? This seemed like making use of others to earn money. If it was just picking up fragments by herself, it would be fine. Now that she had to earn money, the nature was a little different. Now that she could build a tunnel, she didn't have any psychological burden. Ning Shu was in a good mood. As he was spinning, he bumped into someone. However, this person reached out from behind and pulled Ning Shu into his embrace. A pair of hands wrapped around Ning Shu's shoulders from behind. Ning Shu's nose was filled with a fragrance. When he turned to look at Zhang Jiasen, goosebumps rose all over his body. He immediately pushed Zhang Jiasen's hand aside and jumped away. Why you here? Ning Shu couldn't get rid of the chill in his body. If you can go to Shaman City to comprehend the law of Shaman, then I can also comprehend the law of wood and the law of fire. You can't stop me from comprehending the law of wood just because you're the city lord of the law of wood, right? There's no such logic. Zhang Jiasen put his hand to his nose and sniffed. You smell good. Ning Shu almost vomited. Zhang Jiasen had become so greasy, so wretched, so greasy. Right now, he was still having goosebumps all over his body, and they wouldn't go away. He felt as if a snake was coiling around his body. Ning Shu sneered. You're too disgusting. You were the one who bumped into my arms. There's nothing wrong with me hugging you. Zhang Jiasen said directly. Even if there's any past between us, it's all in the past. Why are you holding a grudge? Ning Shu said, yes, I'm holding a grudge. Even if I'm holding a grudge, I should be the one holding a grudge against you. You're the one holding a grudge against me. You're unreasonable. Zhang Jiasen shook his head and said, even if there's any discord between us, there's no need to be so tit-for-tat when we meet. Ning Shu didn't want to talk to Zhang Jiasen. Arguing with him was a waste of time. Reason? Sorry, I'm not going to reason with you. Who do you think you are? She really wanted to kill this guy impulsively, but she had to be obedient. What if she lost the City Lord medal? Now that the Grand Uncle was annoyed because of Zhengqing's matter, if she made trouble, she might be killed. Unless her value was so great that the Grand Uncle would consider her value when he killed her again. Damn it. Ning Shu felt like caterpillars were crawling all over her body. It was disgusting. If she stepped on a caterpillar, her shoes would be dirted by the splashing green water. It was even more disgusting. Zhang Jiasen was a little helpless. When you see me, you must exude killing intent. You can kill the incarnation of the law of earth. You can kill me. I'll stand still. You can do it. If you don't do it, can we reconcile? We used to be husband and wife. Ning Shu was speechless. According to Zhang Jiasan's calculations, she had many husbands in many planes. Zhang Jiasan was one of the scumbag husbands. Ning Shu realized that Zhang Jiasan was really calculating people's hearts all the time. How could he be so sure that she wouldn't do it? He thought that she would be afraid because she had just made trouble once and now wanted to keep a low profile. If she didn't do it, would Zhang Jiasan imagine that she had feelings for him, so she couldn't bear to do it? Do it. If you do it, we'll write off what happened before, Zhang Jiasan said. If you don't do it, is it because you have scruples or because of me? Ning Shu almost laughed out of anger. She was going to do it. They were good friends. If she didn't do it, it was because she couldn't bear to. Do it or don't do it. You got all the benefits. This was a multiple-choice question. Either I'll be your boyfriend or you'll be my girlfriend. Fuck you. Your awkward flirting was really disgusting. He was sure that she wouldn't do it. Fighting now didn't need to be earth-shattering. Ning Shu tried to release her spiritual power. It seemed that she could still use it. This spiritual power was very strong. It directly attacked Zhang Jiasan's consciousness. The spiritual ball was attacked and rebounded violently. Zhang Jiasan's spiritual ball cracked. He groaned and knelt on the ground with his hands on the ground. His expression was painful and hideous. Ning Shu left Wood City to teach Zhang Jiasan a lesson so that he would take a detour when he saw her in the future. She was afraid of the judges and didn't dare to kill a mission enforcer in a city of laws. Moreover, this mission enforcer didn't seem to have provoked her. Looking at it this way, the fault was all on her side. Ning Shu gritted her teeth. Zhang Jiasan was really good at scheming. Even if Zhang Jiasan died, there was still Zhang Jiasan's system. Maybe it would report this matter to the organization. However, the pain of the spiritual ball cracking was very uncomfortable. Zhang Jiasan could enjoy it. Moreover, the average person couldn't repair the spiritual ball. Back then, her spiritual ball was shattered by her heart. Then, her heart needed her spiritual ball like dough and repaired it. So who would Zhang Jiasan find to repair it? The spiritual ball was flawed. It was also very painful to cultivate. There were cracks there and it hurt when touched. Using spiritual power would also hurt. What was she flirting about? Flirting was a very dangerous thing. Zhang Jiasan felt like his mind was being crushed by countless trains. His whole body trembled. The tearing pain made Zhang Jiasan unable to get up for a long time. He raised his head with difficulty. There was no trace of the woman in front of him. Zhang Jiasan's heart seemed to be frozen in ice water. It was bone-chilling. /BK. Chapter 3045. He paid the price for his impulsiveness this time. Zhang Jiasan returned to the system space. His system space had a cold style with gray and black decorations. He sat on the sofa and hugged his head. It hurt too much. Forget about enlightenment, even completing missions was a little difficult. A male voice sounded, "Host, why do you always like to find trouble with this woman? She's obviously stronger than you. You'll definitely be at a disadvantage in her hands. What a stupid thing to do." Zhang Jiasan said in a muffled voice, I don't know. His heart was very complicated. He wanted to kill her, but he also hoped that she would smile at him. Every time he saw her, she had a disgusted expression. Zhang Jiasan wondered when she would smile at him while holding an umbrella. Don't mess with her for now. Her equipment, even an umbrella, is worth tens of thousands of merit points. You've just become the embodiment of the sorcerer's law, so you haven't collected any taxes yet. Zhang Jiasan's system didn't know what was going on between the two of them. It only saw Zhang Jiasan approaching her again and again. Don't think of female mission enforcers as normal mission enforcers. They've been through too much. Normal love can't shake their hearts, especially a woman with 3 sigils of the law. You've underestimated your opponent. He even stood there and let her kill him. Zhang Jiasan had a splitting headache. His head was about to explode. He said to the system, My head hurts. The system checked. There's a crack in your spiritual sphere. Did he really think that she wouldn't do anything to him? Spiritual sphere? Zhang Jiasan frowned. Will it affect my spiritual energy? The system said, What do you think? The spiritual sphere is the foundation of spiritual energy. Now that there's a problem with it, do you think your spiritual energy will be fine? She only did that once, and you can only suffer this hidden disadvantage. It's useless even if you find the judge. The system was bald. He didn't understand the grudge between the two of them. He gritted his teeth and wanted to go over again. Why bother? In an organization with strength, if you insist on using love, when that woman is really strong, I guarantee that you won't use love to conquer her. This is the behavior of the weak. When you can crush her, do you still need to waste time and effort to flirt with her? How can you be so conflicted? You have to be careful. We are now one body. If you do anything dangerous, please think of me. I don't want to be unlucky with you. Zhang Jiasen furrowed his brows and endured the pain. He clenched his fists and flipped the things in front of him in frustration. The pain in his head made him irritable. After messing with Zhang Jiasen for a bit, Ning Shu returned to the system and prepared to do the quest. Even if Zhang Jiasen went to complain, she wouldn't do the mission anymore. Senior uncle wouldn't be so idle as to go to the plane to kill her. Even if he wanted to kill her, he would have to wait until the plane mission was over. Moreover, no one died, so he could just dismiss them with a joke. Ning Shu said to the backup system, I want to do a mission. Let's meet the mission enforcer. The backup system retorted, what do you mean by meeting the mission enforcer? The mission enforcer is watching you do the mission the entire time, but what mission enforcer did you meet? Ning Shu? Can't we meet the mission enforcers? Ning Shu was very confused. In the past, she could meet the mission enforcers. Because of the problem in the world of reincarnation, she had met them a few times and couldn't see them again. The backup system, the organization doesn't have this rule. There is no rule to meet the mission enforcer in advance. Ning Shu scratched her head. What was going on? She had seen it before in this system space. Ning Shu had all kinds of thoughts in her mind. Ning Shu asked, how does your system choose the mission? Choose? The backup system said directly, there is no such thing as choosing the mission. The main system randomly allocates the mission according to the mission enforcer's level. There are difficult and easy missions, and those of equal difficulty are not chosen by the system. Ning Shu? But the missions she did in the past were all chosen by 2333. No, Jingqing. She didn't like the mission of chasing love for others. The missions she did had nothing to do with this. Since it wasn't chosen, why could she refuse? This kind of allocation is to prevent everyone from choosing the easy missions. Some of the more difficult missions are not done. If it drags on, it may cause the plane to collapse. And the missions have a priority. The more serious missions are placed in front. When the mission enforcers accept the mission, they will receive the more urgent missions. The severity of the mission changes all the time. Some clients may have to wait for a long time without any mission enforcers to counterattack for them. It can also prevent uneven distribution and mismatch of difficulty. I don't quite understand what you mean by choosing. It's nothing. Ning Shu intuitively stopped this topic. What was up with her previous system? Ning Shu asked, then is my current mission a mission related to love? Career and love are the two eternal themes of human beings. Many missions are related to love, the backup system replied. Especially love. It is accompanied by suspicion, jealousy, possessiveness, and loss. The resentment that results is very strong. That's right. Many of the missions she did in the past were related to love. The wife who was cheated on, of course, there were more tragic things that had nothing to do with love. Ning Shu was a little confused about what happened in the past. Zheng Qing said that he would choose the missions himself. She even did a lot of system missions for this. But the missions were what she was good at. But the organization's mission allocation all had requirements. Could it be that the main system opened a back door for Zheng Qing? That was not possible. Ning Shu felt that her prophecy mission was a little dangerous. It might really come true. In the past, she felt that her missions were easy. In the future, her missions might be even harder. The backup system asked, do you want to do a mission now? Ning Shu rubbed her head. Zheng Qing ran away, leaving her with a head full of question marks. She had no idea how she used to do missions. It was originally a uniform allocation, but Zheng Qing seemed to have specially chosen it. She chose a lot of system missions and absorbed the wild system. Let me think. Do you know the content of the next mission? Ning Shu's backup system asked. I didn't receive any content from the main system. Ning Shu, the main system is really busy. The main system is just a general concept. There are other systems under the main system. The content they are in charge of is different. Oh, Ning Shu said weakly. She felt that she was really stupid. It seemed that she had gotten some benefits. Zheng Qing chose the missions on his own. But there were also missions that were more difficult. So, there was no option to meet the client. Where did Zheng Qing pull the client into the system space to meet her? The backup system. You have a lot of missions. Can I ask you, don't you do missions? Ning Shu, what? /BK. Chapter 3046. Ning Shu felt that she had done a lot of missions. Why did the backup system say that she hadn't done any missions? Even if there was a backlog of missions, that was because she had been busy with other things recently. There wasn't a backlog of missions. From the backup system's tone, she had a lot of missions. She had been busy for so long, but in the end, to the organization, she wasn't a qualified mission enforcer. The backup system said, if the missions are backlogged for too long, the damage to the plane will be greater, and the difficulty will increase. Ning Shu rubbed her forehead and asked unwillingly, mission enforcers really can't see the mission enforcers? Can't they talk face to face? The backup system, is there really no such thing? Ning Shu, then what she saw before was a ghost. It was indeed a ghost. What was Zheng Qing doing? It looked like he was making things convenient for her, but in reality, it wasn't. She felt that she had done so many missions, but the backlog was still the same. What was going on? She didn't ask Zheng Qing personally, so she didn't know what he was thinking. And every time she did a mission, her attribute panel was correct. Then all the missions she did were connected to the main system and recorded in the main system. But why was there still so much backlog? The backup system, you should refresh your attribute panel. It should be refreshed after a while. The main system will give you a reply. What does refresh mean? Ning Shu felt that something was wrong. Her heart was beating wildly. It's the data recorded by the main system. It also has the number of missions you did and the specific content. It's convenient for you to correct the difference between the main system and yourself, the backup system replied. It answered whatever Ning Shu asked. On the other hand, Ning Shu, a super mission enforcer, seemed rather ignorant. Ning Shu swallowed and said, then I'll update the data too. The backup system. Then I'll ask the main system for information and check. Ning Shu shook her legs and bit her fingernails. She estimated that she really hadn't completed many missions. Ning Shu suspected that some of the missions were private work done by Zheng Qing, and such private work wouldn't be connected to the main system's data. Ning Shu chuckled. He didn't expect that a witty retard like her would have this kind of ability. If she had nothing to do, she might have gone to do some private work. The backup system said, the bill has been updated. You should also update your attribute panel. The stats panel was a private bookkeeping tool. Sometimes, it would be different from the official account. Usually, the official account would take precedence. However, even if there was a slight difference, the difference wasn't that big. Ning Shu opened the bill. The record was quite detailed, including what mission he had completed, the time he had completed it, and the final result. In the end, she had completed 68 missions. More than 60 missions? Ning Shu flipped through these records and had a feeling of understanding. Sure enough, the system's mission was not recorded here. In other words, her system's mission to get the wild system's mission was actually not recorded here. He was a little speechless. Zheng Qing really wasn't a pushover. Wild systems would devour the host's soul. At that time, when he wanted to share a bit of soul power with Zheng Qing, it seemed to have caused a bit of trouble. For a bit of benefit, it seemed that at that time, she tore it apart a bit. In the end, she didn't get anything from Zheng Qing. Perhaps when she was doing the organization's mission, the soul power reward might have been leftovers from Zheng Qing. In any case, Zheng Qing had given her a bit. If he really didn't give her a bit, she would have jumped up at that time. The bill wasn't transparent at all. Moreover, she had no way of knowing that these things were in it. In the end, she had worked for nothing. Jing Qing wasn't willing to share with her at all. The soul power reward after the mission was probably given by Zheng Qing casually. It was something that Zheng Qing used to stabilize her and coax her. Zheng Qing wasn't a witty retard. She was the witty retard. Ning Shu checked the mission list and opened it again. Only now did he realize that her stats panel was really unrecognizable. He couldn't see it. The attribute points weren't correct. The points weren't correct. However, the honorary title was correct. After all, it had been a long time since the honorary title was updated. If it was a private job, then the attribute points were all fake. Except for the soul power, everything else was fake. She held on to the fake attribute points and added and subtracted intelligence and force like a Satan. Jing Qing didn't think that she would find out at all. Perhaps by the time she found out, he would have already left. See, she really only found out after he left. Therefore, he was very unscrupulous. The reason why he didn't kill her was probably because she was a little useful. Instead of killing mission enforcers and constantly being replaced by Taishu, it was better to use mission enforcers to escape. Oh, Jing Qing was simply awesome. She happened to be in a situation where Zheng Qing calmed down and didn't directly get killed. The next time she saw Zheng Qing, she would definitely stab him to death. But she couldn't bear it. In her stats panel, the attribute points were all cut in half. Moreover, when she was doing private jobs, the attribute points were very high. 2333 was directly given blindly. It was often more than 10 attribute points. In fact, the attribute points reward wasn't much. Her own record was like this. The data looked pretty good. Name, Ning Shu, age, 27 level, Super Mission Enforcer points card, 522, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul value, 47 health value, 43 wisdom value, 49 luck value, 49 charm value, 39 spiritual power, 53 force value, 47 aptitude, 46 plus 2 faith power, 20,000 merit, 15,000,000 soul strength, 3 plus 8 authorization ticket, 0 pure heart, none comprehended law, water law incarnation, wood law incarnation, space law, earth law incarnation, constructed world, reincarnation world tools, calm halo, calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2. Honorary title, War God Empress, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, level close combat technique, minor achievement in peerless martial arts, level poison technique, low-level business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, divine master ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis halo, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader halo, grass blessing, best friend for life, Meow Meow Meow's blessing, life-saving hand, Zhu Susu's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty-in-law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, transcending race communication, by San Yang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, Enai Bingyan's blessing, heart of peace and joy, luck halo, faith halo, longevity. /BK. Chapter 3047. Now it had become like this. Name, Ning Shu, age, 27 rank, Super Mission Taker contribution card, 237, 10 million points for 1 contribution card. Soul, 31 health, 28 wisdom, 39 luck, 25 charm, 15 mental power, 40 martial power, 28 potential, 36 faith, 20,000 merit, 15,000,000 soul strength, 11 authorization ticket, 0 pure heart, none law comprehended, water law incarnation, wood law incarnation, space law incarnation, constructed world, world of reincarnation tools, calm halo, heart calming pill, amulet 4, upgraded amulet 2, faith bell honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring, Shooting technique, intermediate fighting technique, intermediate level poison technique, beginner level business management knowledge, beginner level code programming, beginner level lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner level cooking skill, intermediate level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chinshi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, best friend of a lifetime, Meow Meow Meow's blessing, life-saving hand, Yu, Susu's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty-in-law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, transcending race communication, Bai Sanyang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, Enai Bingyan's blessing, heart of peace and joy, luck halo, faith halo, longevity. What was more gratifying was that the merit and faith wouldn't be reduced. She just found out that points could be used to buy items, but now her points were reduced by so much. If there really was a point product, she wouldn't be able to buy any powerful tools with her points. She was given a false number. Ning Shu rubbed his face. He thought that some things were over, but he didn't expect that there would be a bolt from the blue. She wouldn't let Zheng Qing go. She really wanted to kill him. The next time she met him, it wouldn't be as simple as reporting him. Ning Shu slammed his thigh. Then let's start again. Ning Shu said to the system space, let's do the mission now. It was not a good idea to keep the missions piled up here. If there happened to be a problem with the plane and they found that this world was not being maintained, and the missions happened to be in her hands, she did not know what kind of punishment they would suffer. The backup system replied, yes. Ning Shu exchanged for some fasting pills, medicine, and water. After all, not every world could use the power of law. If it was an extreme situation, they would have to rely on these things to survive. The backup system replied, we're about to be teleported. Please get ready. Ning Shu nodded and felt a sense of weightlessness. She merged into a body, and there was a lot of noise in her ears, mixed with the sound of crying. Ning Shu closed his eyes and did not move. For the time being, he accepted the mission information. However, there was no information at all. Ning Shu asked the backup system. The backup system said, the surrounding client has lost their memories. There is no information. Ning Shu was speechless. Therefore, how could a client with no memory be so resentful? Why would the organization accept the client's request? Without memories, there was no way to complete the mission. Even he did not know who he was. Who the hell knew what he wanted and how to complete the mission? It was indeed a little weird. His ears were full of people talking. The language was a little difficult to understand. It should be an ancient plane. Ning Shu decided to cultivate first. After these people left, Ning Shu woke up with trembling eyelashes. A maid was wiping tears by the bed. Miss, you're awake. The maid was very happy and hurriedly asked, Miss, how do you feel? Are you uncomfortable? Are you hungry? Ning Shu, who are you? Ning Shu made up an excuse, saying that his brain was confused and his brain was blank. Like all the plots, he could only ask this maid. If she randomly grabbed someone to ask, especially in an ancient plane, she would be burned to death as a monster. Moreover, Ning Shu did not know what the original personality of the client was. How could she complete the mission without knowing anything? Ning Shu wanted to curse the main system. Since the client had lost his memory and did not remember anything, or sealed his own memory, why couldn't the organization investigate and give him some basic information? This was all because the client was stubborn and could not do it. If the client was transparent and there was no complicated situation, it would be fine. But looking at the decorations in the house, it was not an ordinary house. This was not the backyard of an ordinary family. The backyard was a place where one could kill without spilling blood. The women in the backyard were all smart. Ning Shu felt that the women in the backyard of the rich and powerful in ancient times would definitely be white bones in the modern world. But there was no such opportunity. Ning Shu rubbed his head with a pained expression. The maid immediately asked, Miss, are you choking too much water? Did she fall into the fish pond? There was water in the backyard of the courtyard, rockery, flowing water, and fish ponds. Could she faint from choking on water? Miss, you will be blessed after surviving a disaster. This young master saved you. Ning Shu's head hurt. She fell into the water and was saved by a man. Damn, this was not good. The maid's expression was very gratified. Miss, if you marry young master, we can stay in the house. Ning Shu did not want to talk at all. She did not go out while she was sick. After all, she did not know anyone. Every day she would listen to the maid's chatter. This maid was called Dong Shui. Then, Ning Shu obtained the following information from her chatter. The client was living under someone else's roof. The people in the house called her Miss Biao. She was living in her uncle's house. Her parents were dead and she was an orphan. The identity of an orphan in ancient times was more sensitive. Families who wanted to marry would not choose such a girl. Moreover, Ning Shu did not feel good when he heard that she was a cousin. Since ancient times, cousins were usually cannon fodder. Always listening to Dong Shui's chatter about how handsome and talented that young master was, Ning Shu felt that this body had no chance with that young master. She was an orphan living under someone else's roof. How could the young master's mother agree to her son marrying such a girl? Ning Shu directly asked, "Does cousin like me?" Dong Shui thought for a moment and said, "I think young master treats you quite well. Miss has all the things that the other misses in the house have. Young master will not favor one and discriminate against the other." Ning Shu face-bombed. That was definitely not a chance. In any case, Ning Shu felt that the handsome and talented cousin would at most have a little pity and sympathy for this cousin. Or he would be polite and courteous as a host. The client could not really have any improper thoughts about this cousin, right? If she wanted to marry cousin and stay in the house, the chances were close to zero. Chapter 3048. Even if the cousin really liked the client, she could only be a concubine. The position of the legal wife would definitely not be given to the client. Ning Shu didn't know if the client had really been careless or if he had purposely set it up so that he could scam her cousin. Ning Shu asked Dong Shui to take a mirror and looked at the person in the mirror. She had a small nose, cherry lips, beautiful curved face, watery eyes, and a pitiful expression. Wow, she looked like a two-faced, pitiful cousin who was black-bellied and vicious on the inside. Ning Shu asked Dong Shui how she fell into the water. When it came to falling into the water, Dong Shui's expression became indignant. She said, "It's all the third Miss's fault. The third Miss deliberately tripped you into the pool." "Are you sure?" Ning Shu had to understand the client's current situation. After all, she was living under someone else's roof. She must look at the other person's face. It was not her own home. Maybe the other person would ask her to pack up and get out. So it was normal for the client to be timid and cautious. It was not her own territory. She couldn't take it for granted and be self-confident. Ning Shu could be sure of the client's character. At least in front of others, she was more timid and timid. She was definitely not as noisy as a cockfight. Of course, the third miss doesn't like you the most. Dong Shui looked at Ning Shu and said carefully, "Actually, they are bullying the third miss because she has no family." Ning Shu rubbed his head and told Dong Shui that his head hurt. It hurt so much that he couldn't remember a lot of things. When Dong Shui heard this, she hurriedly went to find a doctor, but Ning Shu stopped her. "No need, it will be troublesome again." He felt that the client was a bit like Lin Daiyu. Lin Daiyu actually had a lot of money. But he didn't know how much money she had. He had to know the client's family background and how her parents died. If there was any information, he wouldn't have to waste time on such a thing. Moreover, he didn't know how things would go in the future. Dong Shui was probably used to her master's weak appearance. She hurriedly poured water for Ning Shu. "Miss, drink some water. It will make you feel better." Ning Shu nodded, took a sip, and asked Dong Shui some questions. Actually, the client's family background was not bad. Her father was the prefectural magistrate, and her mother was the young miss of the Marquis Manor. She was the daughter of the Marquis Manor's first wife, and the Marquis Manor's first wife's daughter. The Marquis Manor's first wife's grandmother. However, during a trip, they were killed by bandits. Although they were officials, they were dressed casually at that time. Even if they killed the officials of the imperial court, the bandits would have already run away. She was originally a delicate girl, but after losing her parents, her father's relatives completely ignored her. Logically speaking, if an orphan girl of the clan went to seek refuge with someone else, the clan would probably lose face and let someone else raise the daughter of the clan. But the client insisted on coming to the capital to seek refuge with her grandmother and uncle, who were closer to her. The matriarch loved her granddaughter, so she left her in the Marquise Manor. The client was about to talk about marriage. Since she lived in the Marquise Manor, the Marquise Manor should make the decision on marriage. When the time came, they just needed to inform the head of the Xiao family. Xiao Caishan's aunt said a few things for her, but Xiao Caishan rejected them all with the reason of mourning. This made the matriarch of the Marquise Manor unhappy for a long time. Especially when she found out that this orphan girl was thinking about her son and wanted to stay in the Marquise Manor, it made her even more unhappy. If he married a cousin who lived in the Marquise Manor, those who didn't know would think that the Marquise Manor was bullying an orphan girl. Moreover, an orphan girl with nothing, no family background, and no parents. This kind of girl was probably ominous. Marrying her parents would bring bad luck. This was similar to Ning Shu's guess. Maybe the client liked that cousin and wanted a place in the Marquise Manor. Even if they talked about marriage with the client's situation, it couldn't be a good marriage at all. The conditions were right there. Rich families had many requirements for a wife. Ning Shu didn't believe that the client could go crazy for love wholeheartedly after losing her parents and seeing the bleak world. The most important thing now was the cousin's attitude. Ning Shu asked, "Does cousin like me?" Dong Shui thought for a moment. "He should like you. Young master is very polite to Mississippi," then he didn't like her. Ning Shu released his mental strength, enveloping the entire Marquise Manor. The Marquise Manor took up a lot of space. The number of maids, servants, masters, men, wives, and concubines wasn't small. Ning Shu memorized the faces and names of these people. Instead, she saw her incomparably handsome and talented cousin, Fuiji. He really was quite handsome. He was as gentle as jade, and his every move was elegant. This kind of appearance, family background, and talent was enough to make a girl fall head over heels for him. If the client really liked this cousin, it wasn't shameful. Everyone liked outstanding men. But this man definitely didn't like the client. It was fine if he didn't like her, but what should he do next? He was really restricted here, giving the client a place to rest. She was an outsider, and the people of the Marquise Manor couldn't treat her as family. Especially the matter of his cousins, Ning Shu felt that it wasn't good. Cousins were used as cannon fodder, and they were so pitiful. Who knew if they would cry at the slightest thing? Ning Shu lifted the blanket and sat up, crossing his legs and rubbing his chin. Ancient girls who didn't have a family and didn't have a place to rest were really bitter. But she couldn't show her face in public. Unlike in the modern world, she could rent a house and find a job to support herself. If he said that he wanted to move out, the first to object would be the people of the Marquise Manor. The ancient people who wanted a reputation wouldn't leave a reputation of mistreating orphan girls. Ning Shu couldn't help but kick the blanket. This was really a dilemma. Especially when the client didn't have any wishes. Who knew what she wanted in her heart? Big hole. Ning Shu used his mental energy to scan the situation in the room, mainly to see how much money the client had. Ning Shu picked up the pillow and took out a few banknotes. The face value wasn't very big, 100 taels for one. In fact, 100 taels was a lot for an ordinary person. But compared to the Marquise Manor, it was definitely shabby. Even if Xiao Caishan's father had some money, it was taken away by the family. For example, the family said that they wanted to take back the land. The rest of the money was to be used for the funeral of her parents. There wasn't much left. Even if she got married in the future, with some money in her hands, even if the Marquise Manor subsidized some dowry, her dowry would definitely be shabby. If she wanted to marry an ordinary person, the Marquise Manor wouldn't allow it. Otherwise, people would say that the Marquise Manor was harsh on orphan girls. Chapter 3049. She didn't put in any effort and just casually married her niece off. In other words, the client was a hot potato for the Hofu, especially when it came to marriage. Especially since the client had rejected the Hofu's mistress several times, she had already made the people in the Hofu unhappy. This time, when she fell into the water, Many people would be able to tell that something was wrong. They would think that she was trying to scam the young master Fu Yiji. "Miss, why are you up? Quickly cover yourself with the quilt. You just soaked in the water, don't catch a cold." Dong Shui carried the ginger soup and placed it beside the bed. She quickly arranged the quilt and covered Ning Shu with it. "Miss, drink some ginger soup. Don't get sick." Ning Shu drank the spicy ginger soup. In other people's houses, she always caused trouble and annoyed them. The Hofu gave her half a house to shelter her from the wind and rain. She didn't have the confidence to cause trouble and might even be called an ingrate. Ning Shu's headache was that he didn't know what the client wanted. Ning Shu asked the backup system, "Is the client watching me do the task now?" The backup system replied, "She's watching." Ning Shu said, "Then can you communicate with her and ask her what she wants?" Shouldn't he say something in this situation? Was it really good to watch her run around like a headless fly? The backup system replied, "I can't communicate with her. This is to prevent the client from changing her wishes and repeatedly increasing the difficulty for the task taker. And even if I can communicate with her, the client has already lost her memory. She also doesn't know what she wants." Ning Shu sighed. In this situation, he could only follow his own pace. After drinking the ginger soup, Ning Shu let Dong Shui dress him up and went to find the old madam. The old madam was Xiao Zaishan's grandmother. She had a tender heart towards the client. After all, she was an orphan and her own daughter had died. The old madam wanted to take care of her. After tidying up, Ning Shu looked at himself in the mirror. He was dressed plainly. After all, it was still the mourning period. It was not suitable for him to wear red and heavy makeup. Dressed like this, coupled with the client's appearance, she looked like she was in mourning, delicate and pitiful. Ning Shu felt more and more that she was a cannon fodder supporting female lead. Perhaps the male lead was that handsome and talented Fu Yiji. As the young marquis, the title of marquis would be passed on to him in the future. He was a noble with a noble status. Ning Shu went to the old madam's courtyard. The house was quite lively. When the old madam's nanny said that Miss Gu had come, the atmosphere in the house changed. Ning Shu walked into the house and felt that everyone was looking at him with different gazes, which contained a lot of information. Fu Yiji was also there. He was dressed in light green clothes. He stood there like a tall and straight bamboo. Ning Shu touched his chest. His heart did not seem to be beating wildly. Could it be that the client did not love Fu Yiji? Otherwise, he wouldn't have any reaction when he saw her body. His mouth could lie, but his body was honest. It was a real thing. When he saw the person he liked, his kidney would be stimulated and his heart would beat faster. Could it be that his soul was strong enough to suppress this feeling? Ning Shu decided to interact more. Maybe if Fu Yiji said something, this body would have a reaction. When the old madam saw Ning Shu, she asked, "Why are you up? Why aren't you resting in bed?" Ning Shu quickly helped the old madam with her luggage. Then he helped everyone present with their luggage. The marquis's wife smiled and said, "You child, we are all family. You don't have to be so polite." Although she was smiling, the skin on her face was twitching. Looking closely, there was a bit of disgust and apprehension in her eyes. Ning Shu smiled and bowed to Fu Yiji, "Cousin as well." Fu Yiji returned the greeting, "Cousin." His voice was clear and bright. It was not low. He enunciated each word clearly and slowly. He stared into the other's eyes without avoiding them. This was a person with an aura of 2.8 meters. Ning Shu's heart beat faster. Could it be that the person who entrusted him was a voice controller? When the marquis's wife saw her son talking to the orphan, her face darkened. Especially when Ning Shu said that he had saved her life, her face could not bear to look at it. Ning Shu said, "Kaishan thanks cousin for saving my life." In that kind of dangerous situation, there was no difference between man and woman. Life is important. I hope cousin will not take it to heart. No matter how much the heavens extinguished human desires, if a person flopped in the water and did not save a person because there was no difference between man and woman, this was against human nature. Fu Yiji only said, "Cousin is right. It is good that cousin does not take it to heart. You are the marquis's daughter and also my sister." The word little sister removed the ambiguity in it. The Marquis's wife laughed. This time her laughter was genuine. She grabbed Ningshu's hand and said, "You are brother and sister. It would be unreasonable if he did not save you." Ningshu smiled faintly. "Thank you, Aunt. I have troubled Aunt." The Marquis's household was living under someone else's roof. Even if she married out, it would change from living under someone else's roof to living under someone else's roof. The woman who was abandoned could only wring her hair and pray to Buddha for the rest of her life. Ningshu had now become an ancient woman who was at a loss for her future. This world was not an ordinary kind of difficult. Women did not have any space to survive. What should she do? If she randomly found someone to marry, who knows what kind of person she would marry? If she just happened to marry someone she liked, the chances were not high. If this was her own life, finding a suitable person to marry was not realistic to talk about love here. Could it be that she would elope with a servant? If the person who entrusted him really wanted to scam Fuiji, then he definitely wanted to stay in the Marquis's household. Compared to going to an unfamiliar place, the Marquis's household was a good choice. But Ningshu was afraid that she was a cannon fodder cousin. So towards Fuiji, she wanted to stay as far away as possible. Moreover, Fuiji did not have any good feelings towards cousin. Not getting close to Fuiji could also make the people in the Marquis's household treat her better. She did not really care about what these people thought. But because of Fuiji, living in the Marquis's household was not worth it at all. The Marquis's household was very complicated. There were 4 branches, and all of them were not separated. Everyone lived in the same household. There were many eyes, and it was very chaotic. Ningshu was an orphan girl. If she wanted to live a peaceful life in the Marquis's household, she must be broad-minded and clear-minded. On the surface, everyone would not mistreat an orphan girl like her. Even if she suffered some grievances, it was not her own family, so it was unavoidable. If she wanted to move out, she reckoned that she would not be able to. The Marquis's household wanted its reputation. Aunt would not let her leave, old Madam would also not let her leave. She could only stay in the Marquis's household. If Xiao Kaishan did not come to the Marquis's household, an orphan girl would not be able to support the family. The family property and marriage were all decided by the family. They would most likely use Xiao Kaishan and would not put much thought into the marriage. In short, the situation of the person who entrusted him was awkward, extremely awkward. /BK. Chapter 3050. Because of Ningshu's tactfulness, the incident of falling into the water was finally over. As a result, she received some gifts, such as new clothes and some jewelry. Compared to the promising, handsome, and talented Fuiji, these things were insignificant. Ningshu stayed in his room all day and did not go out unless necessary. He became more and more transparent in the manner and did not have a sense of existence. However, the third miss, who pushed Xiao Kaishan, was at the door of her courtyard. She did not pay attention and fell down the stairs. The stairs were not high, but because the third miss fell on her face was a bit bloody. It would not leave a scar, but it would form a scab. Once the scab began to fall off, if one did not pay attention, it was likely to leave a black mark. The third miss was on the verge of collapse. Like Ningshu, she did not go out. She looked for various doctors every 2 to 3 days just to not leave a mark on her face. When Dong Shui talked about the third miss, she was very happy to see who the heavens would spare. She must have done something wrong to be so unlucky. How important was a girl's face? It was related to a girl's lifetime happiness. Ningshu only said, "Don't go around saying it. It will not be good if people hear." The third miss is a legitimate miss of the manor. "Yes, miss, I will remember." Dong Shui said again, "I heard that young master went to find Minister Qin's miss and asked her to come over." Ningshu did not care and asked, "Is Miss Qin a doctor?" "Miss, you don't know Miss Qin?" Dong Shui looked surprised. "It seems that Miss has forgotten most of it. Young master said that Miss Qin is a strange woman. She created a lot of delicious food, special music and dances, and various beauty products, such as facial masks. Even the nobles in the palace like to use the things she makes." Ningshu, It was almost instantly confirmed that the protagonist of this world was this Miss Chin who had transmigrated. The difference between people was very big. She did well in her business, hot pot, barbecue, and barbecue. It seemed that the restrictions that women in the boudoir were bound by were not affected by her. This was automatically filtered out by everyone. It was not immoral. She just didn't know if this Miss Chin had anything to do with the client. Ning Shu asked, "Many young masters like Miss Chin, don't they?" Dong Shui rarely left the Fu. Regarding the situation outside, she only heard the gossip from the manservants and servant girls. She said uncertainly, "It should be. After all, His Majesty praised her for her intelligence." Ning Shu felt that the only way Miss Chin could be related to the client was through Fu Yiji. Maybe this Fu Yiji also likes this Miss Chin. There was something wrong with his sister's face. Instead of asking for a doctor, he had to ask for Miss Chin. Miss Chin might be good at beautifying her face, but she shouldn't be that good at treating illnesses. She couldn't possibly apply all kinds of beauty creams or apply a facial mask on the wound, right? Ning Shu asked, "When will Miss Chin come? Would you like to meet the man of the hour?" "I don't know about that. I will definitely pay attention. If Miss Chin comes, I will inform you." Ning Shu only made a sound of acknowledgement. When he had nothing to do, he would embroider and cultivate. Right now, he could only wait quietly because he didn't know what would happen in the future. He had to rely on himself. Fu Yiji quickly invited Miss Chin. Dong Shui hurriedly entered the room. Miss Chin is here. Do you want to go and see her?" "Of course." Ning Shu tidied up a bit and then went to 3rd Mrs. Courtyard with his only servant girl, Dong Shui. 3rd Mrs. Courtyard was very lively. It seemed that there were many people who wanted to join in the fun. Ning Shu saw Miss Chin. This girl looked very lively. She was wearing a light yellow dress and was examining 3rd Mrs. face. Fu Yiji looked at him from the side. His eyes were filled with tenderness and love as he looked at Miss Chin. Ning Shu clicked his tongue. Could it be that the two of them were married and the concubine was the one who entrusted it? Ning Shu's eyes moved back and forth between Fu Yiji and Miss Chin, hoping to see the atmosphere between the two of them. Miss Chin looked at 3rd Mrs. face and said, "Fortunately, it's not very serious. You can use this to wipe it. Don't let it touch water. It shouldn't leave any marks." 3rd Miss heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Miss Chin. I listened to young Master Fu and came to take a look," Miss Chin said. 3rd Miss immediately said to Fu Yiji, "Thank you, big brother." From the corner of her eye, she saw Ning Shu looking into the room. She immediately glared at Ning Shu. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Kaishan wasn't in front of her at that time and that she had fallen in front of her own door, she would have suspected that Xiao Kaishan was taking revenge on her. 3rd Miss felt a little guilty. People really shouldn't do bad things. Karma was about to come. She had just kicked Xiao Kaishan. She didn't expect Xiao Kaishan to be so weak and fall into the pool. Who knows if she did it on purpose? Seeing that her brother was here, she quickly came over. She was really shameless. She looked like a skinny horse in Yangzhou. Coming to someone else's house to observe mourning was really bad luck. Ning Shu was glared at by a 14 or 15-year-old girl, but he didn't feel anything. He didn't quarrel with children. She just came over to take a look at the person who might be the female lead. The young miss of the minister's manor and the young marquis of the marquis manor could be considered a good match. Strictly speaking, she was climbing up the social ladder. But this kind of official's daughter and the domineering marquis were the perfect match. Could it be that Fu Yiji was the supporting male lead? Such an outstanding man, who had everything, was actually a supporting male lead. Could it be that the supporting male lead was the real deal? In any case, she wouldn't covet Fu Yiji, nor would she have any thoughts about Fu Yiji. Then, the battle between the male and female leads and the supporting male lead wouldn't affect her. Even if she hadn't seen so many plots, but recently, she had basically avoided danger. She still had the instinct to avoid danger. Fu Yiji was the source of danger. The Marquis Manor had plans for his marriage. They vowed to find a perfect wife for Fu Yiji. Whoever became a stain on Fu Yiji's reputation, the Marquis Manor would be the first to explode. Also, Fu Yiji himself liked the young miss of the minister's manner. She didn't know what the Marquis Manor's impression of this young Miss Qin. Would they be able to get together? From the female lead's point of view, being the young Marquis of the Marquis Manor was too much of a grievance. If all the civil and military officials fell in love with me, it should at least be a Marquis. Ning Shu stood there and didn't have much of a presence. But in his heart, he was constantly complaining. He saw what he should see, so he didn't want to join in the fun. Returning to his room, Ning Shu said to Dong Shui, "If there's nothing else, you can chat more with those servant girls. I want to know who likes young Miss Qin. Is young Miss Qin engaged?" Dong Shui instantly filled in a lot of things. "Young Miss, you're worried that young Master Fu Yiji likes young Miss Qin, so you're asking about young Miss Qin's marriage." Ning Shu, yes. Chapter 3051. Young Miss, don't worry. I will definitely ask around. Dong Shui promised. Ning Shu took out some silver and asked Dong Shui to buy some sunflower seeds and plum snacks. It was best to eat sunflower seeds when gossiping. If he used real money to ask around, it would look more meaningful. Dong Shui took the silver and promised again that she would find out whether young master liked Miss Qin or not. Ning Shu, what does it matter if he likes her or not? Dong Shui mixed in with the maids when she had nothing to do. Occasionally, she would listen to the servants talk about the outside world. Ning Shu expanded his sea of consciousness. Since the spiritual ball disappeared last time, his spiritual power had not formed yet. It was not in the form of water, mist, or stars. He did not know what form his spiritual power existed in. Before it formed, Ning Shu could only expand his sea of consciousness to make it bigger. This way, he could hold more spiritual power. "Young Miss, I heard that Miss Qin and the third prince are already engaged. They will be married soon. I heard that the two of them love each other very much. As expected of a prince. How boring. If Miss Qin and the prince were together, then there would be nothing for Fu Yiji to do. Fu Yiji would definitely not dare to steal the bride. This was something that the third prince begged the emperor. If Fu Yiji did anything, it would implicate the entire Marquis' estate. So the protagonist's halo would not affect her. Happy. As for Fu Yiji, he could only wish him well. The person he liked was married to someone else. He would be fine after a while. The young miss of the minister's estate was marrying a prince. She was definitely marrying someone of a higher social class. Anyway, they were a loving couple. When the protagonist was in heaven, he could do whatever he wanted without being criticized. However, the canon Fodder did not have this kind of treatment. Ning Shu felt that if a normal person transmigrated to ancient times, they would not be able to live for more than 3 days. Ning Shu felt that ordinary transmigrators would have been annihilated if not for the blessings of fate. Not every transmigrator had the life of a main character. Miss Qin is married. She won't marry into the Lord Protector's manor. Young Master Biao. Dong Shui's meaning was very obvious. She felt that they could fight for it. Ning Shu could only say that he was daydreaming. It would never work. He always felt that Dong Shui did not know what was going on. Some people were like the moon in the well when they had something to do. Even though Fu Yiji had fallen out of love, it was still not her turn. Not to mention that Fu Yiji did not like her. She was still in mourning. Did he want her to climb into his bed? If she climbed into his bed, she might just die from a bowl of medicine. Ancient clans and families had the absolute right to judge people. Ning Shu was happy that the halo of the female lead did not radiate to the Marquis' estate, but the atmosphere in the Marquis' estate these days was not quite right. Ever since the imperial edict was announced, the young master of the Marquis' estate, Fu Yiji, was in a bad mood. He locked himself in his study and wrote and drew. The floor was filled with waste paper. He drew pictures of beauties. The woman in the picture frowned and smiled. He wrote poems. He wrote frustrated poems. They were sorrowful and lingering. They were painful and emotional. He drank the strongest wine to make himself forget the pain. The originally elegant and graceful young Marquis had now become so dejected. It made the head wife's heart ache. Who knew how many young masters were as dejected as Fu Yiji? These men hoped that the woman would know her place and not do anything out of line. They treated the husband as their god. But when a different woman appeared, she was very different. She was different from the women who had rules carved into their bones. She was very lively. These men were very captivated. The third Marquis impatiently wanted to marry Miss Chin. The date was set in a hurry. It seemed that it was true love. When they got married, 10 li of red dowry. Who knew how many women in the boudoir were envious? Even Dong Shui clasped her hands and said with a longing expression, "If Miss could also be like this when she gets married, how good would that be?" "Wake up, stop dreaming." Ning Shu shook his head and said, "She had to look at her own conditions. Her dowry, don't mention 10 li of red dowry. To be able to get married from the Marquis's estate, enter the husband's house, and carry the dowry without leaving the Marquis's estate completely was already not bad. When the daughters of influential families married off, the dowry was determined by the distance between the husband's house and the mother's house. The bride had already entered the husband's house and the tail of the dowry had not left the mother's house. Of course, this was limited to the same city. If she married far away, no amount of dowry would be enough. For example, Miss Chin's serious 10 li of red dowry that went around a quarter of the capital was very eye-catching. Some families were happy while others were sad. After Miss Chin got married, Fu Yiji fell seriously ill. He was bedridden and there was no sign of him being well. The Marquis's wife was so anxious that she cried. She stayed by her son's side all day long. The old madam would kneel in the ancestral hall and chant scriptures when she had nothing to do. She would find a famous doctor to treat Fu Yiji. She probably knew that Fu Yiji was doing this for Miss Chin who had just gotten married. No, it was the current third princess. The nobles of the imperial family could not disrespect her, but it did not mean that they did not have resentment in their hearts. Fu Yiji's illness caused the Marquis's estate to be in a mess. What was even more chaotic was that when the third princess heard that Fu Yiji was sick, she actually came to visit him. Previously, she was a friend. There was nothing wrong with her visiting a friend who was sick. The third princess's actions caused the heads of the Marquis's estate to be collectively speechless. Fortunately, the third Marquis came with her. Otherwise, they would not know what to do. But the third Marquis came to visit, and the news that the Marquis's estate was biased towards the third Marquis. What a headache! No matter how much the Marquis's estate resisted the arrival of the third Marquis and his wife, the two of them still came. In this kind of occasion, it was not good for Ning Shu to attend. But if he wanted to watch the fun, he could only use his spiritual force to scan. After getting married, the third princess was dressed elegantly and luxuriously. When she walked into the room with the third Marquis, she smelled a strong smell of medicine. When she saw Fu Yiji on the bed, she was somewhat surprised. Fu Yiji gave her the impression that he was a very elegant man. But now, he was lying on the bed with a sickly face. Originally, Fu Yiji was sick and a little delirious. When he suddenly saw his sweetheart, he suddenly felt that he was dreaming. He murmured the third princess's name. The third princess asked Fu Yiji to recuperate well and not to joke about his health. What kind of illness did he have that made him so sick? It took Fu Yiji a while to realize that Miss Chin, who was already married, really came to see him. He must look very embarrassed now. Not only did women dress up for their sweetheart, but men also did the same. Fu Yiji was so excited that a sickly blush appeared on his face. The third Marquis said to Fu Yiji, "Yiji, hurry up and recuperate well. Don't be lazy all day." Fu Yiji had a position in the Ministry of Rights, and the third Marquis was Fu Yiji's immediate superior. The Ministry of Rights was actually a government office with no official duties. It had to be said that the Ministry of Rights was also very busy. It had to be busy with the titles of the nobles in the harem, as well as the royal sacrifices and visits from other countries. But its importance was not as great as that of the Ministry of War or the Ministry of Personnel. Chapter 3052. Presumably, the third prince was not reconciled, and Fu Yiji was the future Marquis, and the title of nobility would fall on his head. Roping him in would be a help, not to mention that the Marquis's mansion was not a small force. This visit would give the outside world another wrong information, as if the Marquis's mansion was on the side of the third prince. At that time, others would think that the Marquis's mansion was on the side of the third prince. Even if they denied it, others would put the two sides together when considering. Fu Yizhi looked at the third princess greedily, but he had basic vigilance and did not dare to let the third prince notice. Ning Shu, who was peeping, felt that the third prince was well aware of it, and could even use the young Marquis's feelings for the princess to pull the Marquis's mansion to his side. No matter how much you adore him, you have already become his wife who shares the same bed as him. Therefore, when faced with someone adoring his wife, a man may show jealousy, but more often than not, it is a kind of pride. The Marquis wanted to put his hand on his forehead when he saw his son's performance. Once it involved love and love, his wise and calm son disappeared. The third princess left some pills, saying that it could help Fu Yizhi's illness. After the Marquis and his wife left, Fu Yizhi was in a very calm state, and actively cooperated with the medicine and treatment. Before, he was sick, but now he could get out of bed and walk around. The Marquis and his wife breathed a sigh of relief, but they were very uneasy. Their son was like this, which made them really worried. He looked very normal, but it always made their hair stand up. He was too calm, so calm that it made people feel that his heart was dead. Or maybe he had made a decision in his heart. After all, she was Fu Yizhi's mother. The Marquis's wife felt that her son may have to keep his chastity for the rest of his life for that princess. He did not marry, and did not have children for the Marquis's mansion. In order to test her son, the Marquis's wife tried to arrange several marriages for her son, and wanted to let her son see. However, all of them were rejected by Fu Yizhi with the reason that his career was more important. This feeling was even worse. The Marquise's heart became even more uneasy. She asked Fu Yizhi directly, "Are you acting like this because of the third princess consort? Don't forget, she is already married. It is impossible for you two to be together." Fu Yizhi pursed his lips. He had met the best people and the most interesting people. They were like-minded people. If he had to live with another woman, it would be a suffocating despair. If that was the case, he would rather not get married. Her son's silence made the Marquise feel even more hopeless. That was the daughter-in-law of the imperial family. How could he even think about her? Moreover, what was so good about that woman? She offended public decency and seduced so many men before she was even married. Taking away her son's soul, the Marquise was inevitably dissatisfied with the third princess. No matter what, it was that woman's fault. Fu Yizhi directly said, "I will not marry a woman from a noble family. I can't give those women what they want. If you want to become enemies, then you can just find a woman with a similar family background to marry me. As for how your life will be in the future, I don't care." The Marquise clutched her chest. In this kind of situation, marrying a woman from any family would be the same as becoming enemies. How could the woman's family spare the Marquise's family? The Marquise was so angry that she fell ill. Lying on the bed, her whole body was aching. She knew that she could not threaten her son. Even if he really married her, she would only be a decoration. Her son had always been outstanding since he was young. She had never worried about him. But now that he was rebellious, it was simply infuriating. The Marquise earnestly said, "That woman is already married to the third prince. That means she is the daughter-in-law of the imperial family. If people know that you are coveting a woman from the imperial family, the entire Marquise's family will suffer. The safety of the Marquise's family depends on you. You must not be willful. There are so many lives at stake." Fu Yizhi's expression was painful. He did not speak. The Marquise was distressed, but she still said, "Now the most important thing is to quickly get married and stop the third prince's thoughts." The third prince came to visit the sick. His intention was not obvious. If the third prince knew about it, he might cause trouble. Immediately getting married could solve a lot of problems. But the person to marry was a problem. Generally, how could a woman with prestige tolerate her husband like this? At that time, it would not be a marriage, but a real feud. The Marquise had a headache and went to the old madam to discuss it. Fu Yizhi did not look like he was about to get married. Every day, he had an indifferent face. In the dead of the night, He looked at the portrait of the third princess and touched the face of the third princess. This infatuated look made Ning Shu click his tongue twice. At the same time, he was a little unhappy. Now he only needed a woman to make Fu Yizhi a married man. But the person to marry was a problem. Ning Shu found that she was the perfect candidate. Her parents were dead, and she was an orphan. Marrying into the marquise's family was like climbing up the social ladder. The bitterness and sweetness of it could not be understood by outsiders. And even if she was wronged, she had no family to complain to, no one to support her. Even if her husband had someone else in his heart, she had to endure. She was more or less a widow. But from the perspective of benefits, this marriage was actually possible. She could become the wife of a young marquise. She could live a luxurious life and have a group of servants. If she could successfully stay in the marquise's family, she would be the marquise's wife. Her life would be very good, and she would be the first wife. As for her husband, whoever loved him, he could like whoever he liked. Now it was up to the old madam and the marquise's discussion. Although there were benefits, there were also risks. People were greedy. With the position of the first wife, she would have to look forward to the man's love. And the husband still loved a married woman. Torturing himself, his life would not be good. It would depend on his attitude. One day after breakfast, the old madam's mama came over and told Ning Shu to tidy up and go to the old madam's courtyard. Ning Shu understood. Here it comes. Ning Shu made herself more plain. She wore a silver hairpin on her head. She did not even bring any slightly colored hairpins. This was in line with her identity as a filial daughter. Ning Shu went to the old madam's courtyard. There were not many people in the house. The old madam, the marquise, and Fu Yizhi. There was not even a maid. After Fu Yizhi recovered from his illness, his body had become much thinner. His temperament had become more solemn. At first glance, he did not look like a lively man. He looked like he was hurt by love. It seemed like he loved the third princess very much. Especially when he could not get her, she would become a permanent cinnabar mole in his heart. It was already an obsession. Ning Shu bowed and greeted them one by one. When it was Fu Yizhi's turn, Ning Shu asked, "Cousin, is your body better?" This kind of polite greeting, asking a question, would not cause him to lose a piece of meat. It also made him seem polite. Chapter 3053. In response to his cousin's greeting, Fu Yizhi only nodded indifferently. Before, Fu Yizhi was a little polite to this cousin, but after knowing that his parents and the madam wanted to make this cousin his wife, this politeness disappeared without a trace. In the end, he was just venting his anger. On the surface, Ning Shu was very careful, but in his heart he was laughing, as if she wanted to marry you. The marquise's sickly face had a smile on it, but if one looked carefully, this smile was very stiff and unwilling. She beckoned Ning Shu to come in. Ning Shu lowered his head and walked in front of the marquise. When she saw Ning Shu's appearance, she was even more dissatisfied. This kind of orphan girl, a girl with a petty temperament, how could she be worthy of her son? The marquise held Ning Shu's hand and said in a gentle voice, "Kai Shan has been in the house for a long time. Do you want to stay in the house forever?" Ning Shu, how do you want me to answer? Yes or no, it's not good. You have reached the suitable age. I think you and your cousin are a good match. If you agree, then nod your head, and soon you will get married. Ning Shu pulled his hand out of the marquise's grasp. His face was full of shock. Get married with cousin? Ning Shu looked at Fu Yizhi, who didn't care about this matter, and said, "Aunt, this is not good." The madam said, "What is not good about it? One of you is my grandson, the other is my granddaughter, a match made in heaven." Ning Shu, granddaughter, grandson? Sounds inexplicably abnormal. Giving birth to a child is easy to be deformed. If you agree, then find an auspicious day to get married. The marquise said while holding back her anger. Marrying an orphan girl was simply an insult to her son. Moreover, she was the official wife, even if her son had another woman in his heart and didn't love her, but it still made the marquise angry. Ning Shu rolled his eyes in his heart. So rushed, so perfunctory, inexplicable marriage and casual appearance. To be honest, this deal was not bad. After becoming a marquis wife, she wouldn't have to worry about food and drink and would have people to serve her. She would be able to enjoy splendor and wealth. But as a supporting male lead, it was hard to say when he would serve the female lead like a dog or a horse. She, as his wife, might also be unlucky. Moreover, Fu Yiji seemed to be deeply in love with the third princess. Other than showing off the female lead's great charm, there was still a man who missed and loved her so much even though she was already married. More likely, if the female lead was in trouble in the future, this man would help her unconditionally, although she didn't know what it was. Ning Shu keenly felt that there was a trap ahead. Ning Shu lowered his head and said, "Both my parents have passed away. The mourning period is not over yet." After being rejected, the marquise's expression became even colder. She stiffly said, "There is still less than half a year left. I think your parents won't blame you." Ning Shu raised her head and asked Fu Yiji, "Cousin, do you really want to marry me?" Fu Yiji only said, "My family wishes to marry you." He only said his family and didn't say himself. Ning Shu bowed to the elders in the room and said, "Kaishan wants to observe mourning for her parents. Moreover, Kaishan is only an orphan and is not compatible with Cousin. Cousin deserves a better woman. Kaishan cannot marry Cousin." Fu Yiji looked at Ning Shu with a strange expression. He didn't think that Ning Shu would refuse. According to her situation, this was a meat pie that fell from the sky. The marquise was gratified that Ning Shu had self-awareness and knew his place. But she was also angry that he didn't know what was good for him. How could he refuse? The marquise didn't like this niece of hers. No matter if the other party refused or accepted, she would feel uncomfortable. Especially when she was about to become a daughter-in-law. A daughter-in-law was a natural enemy. This girl was really lucky. Otherwise, how could an orphan girl become the marquise? Ning Shu expressed that she was very touched by the love of everyone in the marquise. Then she very decisively refused. Her reason was that she had to mourn for her parents. The rejection was unexpected and made the atmosphere stiff. In the end, it was Fu Yiji who said, "Since Cousin is not willing, then don't force her." The marquise was clear that her son didn't want to get married. The marquise waved her hand to let Ning Shu and Fu Yiji leave. It seems that she won't force Ning Shu to marry Fu Yiji. Ning Shu and Fu Yiji left the courtyard one after the other. Fu Yiji's body carried a cold aura that kept people away. It was as if the marriage of the third princess had taken away all of Fu Yiji's vitality and warmth. Ning Shu curled her lips. So affectionate that it was a bit nauseating. Fu Yiji cupped his hands to Ning Shu and left. Dong Shui saw Fu Yiji leave and quickly came over to help Ning Shu down the steps. Ning Shu turned to look at the marquise's courtyard. To be able to convince her son or grandson to marry an orphan girl, she had already gathered a lot of courage. With this rejection, her anger dissipated. She also couldn't bring herself to insist on marrying her orphan girl to the marquise's outstanding successor. Otherwise, it would make it seem that no one wanted Fu Yiji. Returning to the room, Dong Shui poured tea for Ning Shu and asked, "Miss, why did the marquise call you over? Why didn't you let me in?" Ning Shu only said, "She asked me when I would be done with my mourning and who I want to marry." Dong Shui sighed, "How good would it be if Miss and young Master Biao married? Here, Mrs. Maternal Grandmother and Uncle will be there to support you even if you are wronged. If I marry into another family, AI." Ning Shu felt that if she married into another family, the marquise's household would still take care of her a little. Once they really became a family, how would they deal with this mess? If she was wronged in another family, the marquise's household could still say a few words. If she really married into the marquise's household, there wouldn't be so many flowers. Ning Shu guessed that the person who commissioned her had agreed to this marriage and could successfully stay in the marquise's household. And what happened after that? Missions without memories were really troublesome. They were even harder to complete than missions without aspirations. She didn't even know the direction of the story. As expected, after that, the head of the marquise's household did not mention her marriage with Fu Yiji again. In the end, they couldn't bear for their son to be matched with an orphan, and an orphan who was still in mourning. If word got out, it would be bad for their reputation. The young Marquise married his cousin who was still in mourning. Of all virtues, filial piety was the most important. The ancient people valued filial piety the most. What was damaged was Fu Yiji's reputation. Then Ning Shu's days were still so calm, never leaving the house. Dong Shui would chat with the servant girls in the household when she had nothing to do. When she heard some interesting things, she would come back to play the Dragon's Gate game with Ning Shu. It could be considered some of the fun in this boring inner residence, including what happened in the capital, which matriarch killed or sold concubines. Apart from a few official concubines that couldn't be divorced or bought, all the concubines brought up by the servant girls had their contracts in the hands of the matriarch. Selling them was just a matter of a word. Recently, the news in the capital was about how loving the third princess and her husband were, how harmonious they were, attracting the admiration of many unmarried women towards the third Wangye. How come they didn't know that the third Wangye was such a good man? Chapter 3054. The third Marquis didn't have many concubines, so he doted on the third princess a lot. He looked like a marquis who didn't have much ambition and was addicted to love. Wherever he went he would spread dog food. It was the Azura dog slaughterhouse. But the two of them could look at each other as if there was no one else around. The pink atmosphere made the onlookers feel cold. Shit, go home and show off. The third Marquis was even scolded by the Emperor because of this. He said that a grown man like him shouldn't be a bit more mature if he spent all his time with his wife. The third Marquis: if I don't spend time with my wife, am I supposed to spend time with other people? That made sense. Speechless. The Emperor couldn't be bothered. This wasn't a mistake in principle. His son liked a woman and it was his wife. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with that. It was better than colluding with the court officials and staring at the chair under his butt all day. This kind of man was admired by all the women in the boudoir. They were even more envious of the third princess. This made people envious and jealous. The husband spoke up to protect his wife. He wasn't afraid of being called henpecked at all. That righteous look on his face. It really made women yearn to marry a man like the third Marquis in the future. They didn't ask for the third Marquis status. They just wanted the third Marquis personality. The third princess was really lucky. Ning Shu stayed in the Marquis mansion and didn't go out. But the news still reached her ears. Now, Dong Shui seemed to have found a lifelong career. Plus, Ning Shu allowed it. She exploded with great enthusiasm. Gossip made a living. Ning Shu felt like he was stuffed with dog food every day. He felt like he couldn't take it anymore. He didn't know who was so bored to spread the news about the couple. There were probably a lot of people paying attention to this couple. Then some business was born. That was probably how the gossip magazines came to be. Ning Shu stretched. Recently, he had been expanding his mindscape. But his spiritual power hadn't formed yet. Ning Shu was a bit worried. Call the food. I'm hungry. Ning Shu said. All right. After a while, Dong Shui ran back angrily. The food in the food box was not very good. There were stir-fried celery and a few chicken bones, chicken necks, and chicken wings. Anyway, there was no meat. What is this? Dong Shui was unable to calm her anger. Although Miss is not a proper Marquis Fu's miss, but you can't be like this. Ning Shu was expressionless. He picked up his chopsticks and said, let's eat. Right now, the Marquis' estate is in troubled times. Who cares about these things? Dong Shui snorted twice and scooped chicken soup for Ning Shu. The chicken soup was very clear. If not for the few pieces of chicken, one would have thought that it was water. It was probably added to the chicken soup. Young Miss is really wronged. If Master and Madam were still here, young Miss wouldn't have to suffer like this. Dong Shui chattered endlessly, almost wiping away her tears. She also said that the servants of the Marquis Fu were snobbish. Ning Shu ate the stir-fried celery. It was bland and tasteless. In the end, she was living under someone else's roof. What could she not do? Sigh, it would be difficult to establish her own household. Even if she wanted to establish her own household, now was not the time. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that the Marquis Madam did it on purpose. The last time she refused, the people of the Marquis Fu lost face. But the Marquis Madam had always been considerate. She would not be so shallow as to mistreat people in this aspect. Therefore, the Marquis Madam was not in the mood to manage the rear residence. Because of Fu Yiji's matters, she did not care about an orphan girl's daily needs. Rumor had it that the Marquise had recently invited Fu Yiji to look at a few women, but Fu Yiji's attitude was neither cold nor warm. He would let them look at him, but as for the women who came to look for him, he simply ignored them. This was related to the problem of attitude. The girls could not stand Fu Yiji's coldness. They were all treasured children of the family, and they were all the daughters of the first wife. Learning the rules, learning the zither, chess, calligraphy and painting, learning how to manage the rear residence, all these hardships were not for the sake of seeing someone's cold face. The girls all expressed that they were not satisfied with Fu Yiji. So what if he was the Marquis? Even if it was a matchmaker, they still needed to find someone they were satisfied with. Even if they did not love each other, they should not be like this. They were not even married yet, but they were already giving people that attitude. Who knows what would happen after they were married? Why should they be angry? The Marquis Madam was so angry that she covered her chest and hammered Fu Yiji with her fist. What do you want? Which part of those girls are not as good as her? You child, Fu Yiji only said, I can get married. I can marry anyone as long as mother is satisfied. Listen, what are these words? The Marquis Madam's heart ached. What should she do? It was all that third princess's fault. She was always in the limelight and seduced so many men. Now that her son was like this, the Marquis Madam did not like that third princess. The more unobtainable something, the better. The more she thought about it, the more she became obsessed. Now her son was obsessed. Could it be that she really had to beg that orphan girl to marry her son? How could her son, whom she was so proud of, fall to the point where no one wanted him? How infuriating! But the Marquis Madam did not dare to introduce any more noble girls to her son. Recently, people's impression of the Marquis mansion had dropped rapidly. She originally thought that if her son met these girls, he might be able to take a fancy to one of them and get married. But the truth was that she really thought too much. Especially when she heard from the Marquis that recently Yiji and the third prince were a little close. This made the Marquis Madam even more anxious. Her husband said that he wanted her son to get married quickly, so that he would not always be whimsical. Getting married was easier said than done. There had to be someone who would get married. It seems that there was only one orphan girl at home. The Marquis Madam held back her anger and called Ning Shu in front of her. With a kind smile on her face, she said, Kai-shan, I really like you. Ning Shu said, Thank you, Aunt. Kai-shan also likes Aunt. The two of them exchanged pleasantries. The Marquis Madam asked how life in the Marquis mansion was. If she wanted to eat something, she could ask the kitchen to make it. If she wanted anything, she could just ask the accountant to pay for it. Ning Shu nodded, indicating that she would not be polite. The Marquis Madam took Ning Shu's hand and stroked the back of Ning Shu's hand over and over again. Kai-shan, have you ever thought about staying in the Marquis mansion and becoming the mistress of the Marquis mansion? Ning Shu shook her head. Kai-shan has never thought about it. The Marquis Madam choked and said, You silly child. I am your aunt. If I don't love you, who will I love? If you marry your cousin, we will become a real family. Ning Shu blabbered on about her identity. She did not want it. She had to mourn for her parents. Everything else could wait until after the mourning period. In any case, mourning was her protective talisman. She could use mourning to block anything. The Marquis Madam was rejected again. Moreover, she was an orphan. If she could become the Marquis Madam, why did she keep refusing? She really did not know what was good for her. Chapter 3055. The Marquise was somewhat absent-minded. Could it be that her son had no market? Such an outstanding son, how could he not even find someone to marry? The Marquise wanted to vomit to death. Her face was very ugly. She said to Ning Shu, It is your cousin who is not worthy of you. This was completely out of anger. Ning Shu only said, It is Kai-shan who is not worthy of cousin. Kai-shan has never thought of marrying cousin. Moreover, I have to observe filial piety. Now there is a chance for you to marry your cousin. You are not willing, you have to seize this opportunity. In the future there will not be another chance like this. Let's talk about the future in the future. Ning Shu said. The marquise was already angry, her chest was heaving up and down. She waved her hand to tell Ning Shu to get out. If it was not for her son, she would not even bother to speak with her. Ning Shu returned to his room, curling his lips. It was clearly Fu Yiji who did not want to get married. Why did he have to drag someone to experience this kind of pain? Fu Yiji's uncooperative attitude made the marquise think about her again. Sorry, I have to observe filial piety. If you have the ability, then marry a filial daughter. Ning Shu was thinking about how to leave the marquise's mansion. Living under someone else's roof is not a long-term solution. Could it be that returning to the family? But even if he returned to the family, he would still be living under someone else's roof. Marriage would be for the family's benefit. When the time comes, even if he married a cat or a dog, he would not be able to refuse. After rejecting the marquise, Ning Shu did what he should do. He was not affected at all. But the food was really getting worse. If it was not cold, then it was a little smelly. The weather was getting hotter and hotter. The leftovers from last night were quickly spoiled. Once there was a smell, it meant it was not fresh. Ning Shu guessed that this was the marquise's method. This method was not much, but it was good at making people uncomfortable, and it was not like they did not give food. There was no way to reason. Even if there was a dispute, it could be said that the servants were negligent, and the matter would be over with a punishment. For the marquise, this matter was not painful. It was probably because she was angry in her heart. Dong Shui was about to die from anger and couldn't help but find the chef in charge of cooking in the kitchen to make a fuss. The chef retorted, "Your young miss isn't even a member of the Marquis Fu. She's eating and living in the Marquis Fu for free. What else do you want?" Dong Shui was so angry that her eyes turned red, but she couldn't say a word. She dispiritedly carried the basket to Ning Shu. "Miss." Ning Shu did not pay much attention to it. He felt that there was still something that had not been resolved, so he had to stay in the Marquis' estate for a while. Dong Shui sighed. She didn't understand why their life in the Marquis Fu had suddenly changed. What had happened? It seemed like only their family's young miss was treated harshly. The other young misses and young masters of the Marquis Manor were not treated harshly. Their food and clothing were the same as usual. Moreover, it was almost summer, and the weather was starting to heat up. Summer clothes were about to be made, but no one came to take the young lady's measurements. Could it be that she had to wear last year's clothes? Dong Shui couldn't figure it out even after racking her brains. This kind of uncomfortable matter, for Ning Shu, was not painful. If there was something to eat, he would eat. If there was nothing to eat, he wouldn't eat. Occasionally, he would let Dong Shui take some money to buy something to eat. Perhaps if she had agreed to the Marquise's request, perhaps the current situation would not be like this. The Marquise's heart was not comfortable, so she wanted people to be uncomfortable with her. People under the eaves had no choice but to shut up. Instead of arguing with others, it was better to expand her mental strength. When spring approached summer, it was the time to hunt. The royal family's hunt was a very important form of entertainment. But it was very easy for things to happen at this time. Swords did not have eyes, and when they hit people, they would start to rub against each other. Many things happened on the hunting grounds. There was no deep palace, no majestic imperial palace, but the hunting grounds were the most unstable. The nobles of the royal family all gathered there. It was very easy for things to happen. For example, a group of assassins dressed in black during the day would suddenly appear. They would kill anyone they saw, no matter who they were. A deafening shout, "Dog Emperor, give me your life." However, this assassin was immediately turned into a hedgehog. The third Marquise's token was found on the assassin's body. Fuck, the third Marquise wanted to rebel. The Emperor's face was extremely ugly, and he immediately ordered the arrest of the third Marquise. The third Marquise was the Emperor's son, so he should have some people in his hands. The Emperor informed the third Marquise, who was in the middle of a hunt, that something had happened and that he should stop hunting. When the third Marquise heard this, even if it was slander, it was still yellow mud that fell into the crotch of his pants. Even if it was not shit, it was still shit. There was no room for him to quibble. If he was judged guilty, he would either be imprisoned or killed. Who cares if he was wronged or not, but he had crossed the emperor's bottom line. Even if it was his own son who threatened his power, he would be very sensitive and furious. You want to kill your father to become the emperor? The third marquise did not hesitate to choose to run away. But at this time, the third princess was already pregnant. He did not know what would happen on the way. So the third marquise temporarily entrusted his wife to someone else, waiting for him to kill his way back. The third marquise's escape made the emperor's fury turn into a murderous aura. He directly issued a warrant, regardless of life or death. If someone killed the third marquise, there would be a reward. But it was not certain whether this reward could be obtained. The third marquise was the emperor's son. You still want a reward after killing his son? I will definitely let you and the third marquise accompany each other on the road to the Yellow Springs. Although the third marquise had run away, he had turned from a noble to a wanted criminal. The couple who were still showing off their love had now become traitors. Things had changed too quickly. Before, they were still envious of the couple, but now everyone was silent. Some unmarried women sighed. How could it be like this? However, there was an indescribable feeling in their hearts. So what if they showed off their love so much? Now they had to be homeless, unable to have a high bed and soft pillow. With such a thing happening, of course the hunt had to be stopped. Ning Shu learned of this matter and was a little speechless. It seemed that the third marquise's image to the outside world was that he doted on his wife like his life. He did not seem to have any ambition and did not rope in the court officials. Perhaps he would do it again, but it was not obvious. It was obvious that he had been framed. Otherwise, that assassin would not have been so careless. Who would shout to remind the other party to kill someone? Fucking retard. The atmosphere in the city was a little different. The imperial bodyguards were searching back and forth, so there were fewer people looking for pleasure. At night, there was not a single person on the streets. But the third marquise seemed to have evaporated into thin air, disappearing without a trace. If the third princess was really the female lead, then the third marquise was the male lead. Then the third marquise would come back. At that time, he would definitely make a comeback and seize the throne. This did not seem to have anything to do with her, but the person who entrusted the task was only married to a man whose heart belonged to someone else. This man was incomparably cold, but he would not forget. Chapter 3056. Not long after, Fu Yiji came back with a masked woman. This woman was dressed very plainly, and her face was covered, so that people could not see what she looked like. So he brought her home. And this woman's belly was slightly protruding. It seemed that she was pregnant. Ning Shu scanned with her psychic power, and was stunned for a moment. She scanned again. If her memory was not wrong, this face should be the third princess. The third princess did not go with the third prince, but stayed. Seeing her slightly protruding belly, Ning Shu understood. It was too dangerous to escape with two bodies. But Fu Yiji was so careless to bring home the wife of a rebel. Was there something wrong with his brain? Ning Shu took a deep breath. If something happened to the whole mansion, the whole family would be executed, and she, as an orphan, would also be executed. Fu Yiji brought back such a daughter, which was a bomb to the head of the whole mansion. Fu Yiji directly said that this woman was his woman, and that she was pregnant, and now he was going to get married. Madame Ho's head was about to explode. With a veil, she could not even see the person's face clearly, what was going on, and she was indeed pregnant. Madame Ho asked, "Which family is this young lady?" Fu Yiji said, "It's Huan Yang." Huan Yang was a brothel girl. When Madame Ho heard this, her heart was about to explode. What the hell? Her son was going to marry a brothel girl. Why did he have to torture people like this? This child had never been worried since he was a child, but now he was worried for his whole life. Fu Yiji said, "Didn't you always want me to get married? I'm going to get married now." Fu Yiji's face was full of smiles. It was the kind of sincere happiness as well as eagerness. Seeing his son like this, Master Ho's heart jumped. He called Fu Yiji to the study and asked, "Who is this woman? Tell me the truth. Is she the third princess?" Fu Yiji shook his head. "No, she looks very much like the third princess." Master Ho couldn't help but have a headache. You are going to marry a prostitute. Do you know how sad your mother is? As a man, he couldn't really lift the woman's face to see. Master Ho asked again, is she the third princess? It wasn't that he didn't know that his son liked the third princess. Now that the third prince was in trouble, a woman who had to flee with him would definitely suffer a lot. They might have even lost each other. If this woman was really the third princess, then Fu Yiji had stolen someone else's wife. Moreover, she was the wife of a traitor. If Saint knew that they were harboring a traitor, then the entire house of Marquis would suffer. Hoping that his son could calm down, Master Ho stared at him and said, "Don't hide it from me. If something goes wrong, it will be too late to think of a way." He was truly possessed. Fu Yiji thought for a moment and admitted, "She is the third princess." Master Ho was horrified. He stood up and slapped his son's face. "Do you know what you are doing?" Fu Yiji covered his face and then put down his hand, saying, "Of course I know what I am doing. The third prince has been framed and the third princess is pregnant. She is pregnant. If she is caught, she will definitely die." Master Ho was heartbroken. "Silly. She won't die now. But you have risked so many lives in the house of Marquis. Where is your brain?" Fu Yiji said, "I will arrange this matter. I want to marry her." Master Ho was already numb from the stimulation. "Marry? She is the wife of the third prince. She is the daughter-in-law of the royal family with Yudi. You want to marry her?" "Of course not in this identity." Fu Yiji said, "Only marriage is the best way." Master Ho sneered, "There are some things that you can't think about. Father, believe in your son. Among the sons of His Majesty, only the third prince is capable of taking on such a great responsibility. That's why he suffered such a calamity. I believe that the third prince will soon be able to regroup and return. Before that, we must protect the third princess and the child in her belly." No matter how righteous Fu Yiji's words were, Master Ho looked at him with a sneer. They were all men and could understand what he was thinking. "Marriage?" Master Ho sneered and asked, "Then when the prince comes back, what should the princess do?" His Majesty was still in power. Maybe before the third prince came back, their house of Marquis would be the first to lose their heads. Of course, she will die of illness or disappear in other ways. Fu Yiji pursed his lips and said, he was satisfied to have a relationship with her, even if it was in name only. Master Ho said lightly, "What if I don't agree and have to hand this woman over?" He was really annoyed by this woman. There was no end to it. Fu Yiji just said, "Then father, you have to think of a good excuse. Explain why the third princess is in the house of Marquis and what is the close relationship between the house of Marquis and the third prince." "You are threatening me." Master Ho was so angry that he laughed. He was threatened by his son, a woman who was already a wife. It was like putting the house of Marquis on the fire. "I have said that I will deal with this matter. I will not let her identity spread." The third princess was arranged to stay in Fu Yiji's yard. Fu Yiji walked into the yard and saw the third princess restless and looking around at the door. He hurried over. "You are pregnant. Don't move around." Fu Yiji helped the third princess to sit down. The third princess asked worriedly, "How could this happen? Will the prince be okay?" Fu Yiji comforted her, "It will be okay. Don't worry. The prince is blessed and will come back. Before that, you have to protect yourself and marry me." "What? Married to you?" Third princess consort was shocked. What was going on? "I'm already married to His Highness." "Of course, you will not marry me as the princess. You will marry me as another identity. I will take care of this identity. I don't know when the prince will come back. You and I will become husband and wife. This is the best way to keep it a secret." "This." The third princess's expression was awkward. Now the prince's life and death was unknown. But she was going to marry another man. "No, I am the prince's woman." Fu Yiji's heart was full of pain. He said, "It is not a real marriage. It is to confuse the outside world. We are husband and wife in name only. You are the third princess. When the prince comes back, you will be the third princess. Think about it. Now you are wanted everywhere. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Who will think that my wife is you? After you get married, don't see anyone. Wait in this yard until you give birth. The third princess suddenly encountered such a change. She felt uneasy. This was a good idea, but she always felt sorry for the prince. The prince just had an accident. She was going to marry another man. When the prince came back, how should she face it? /BK. Chapter 3057. Fu Yiji said, even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for the child in your belly. It's too dangerous outside. The child can be in danger at any time. In the Marquis's residence, you can wait for delivery without worry. Fu Yiji felt that he was quite despicable. In order to keep the third princess, he used the child to tie her down. Moreover, the child wasn't even his. But this was the only way to keep her by his side. Once the prince returned, she would be removed from his life again. But he was greedy. He longed for her, even if it was just for a short while. The third princess stroked her belly and nodded with difficulty. Finally, she said, Yiji, I'll have to trouble you. It's no trouble. Fu Yiji had a smile on his face. He instructed the third princess to have a good rest. Then, he instructed the servant girls to take good care of the third princess and not to slack off in the slightest. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn, Fu Yiji was a role model in the world of taking over. Not only did he take over, he even had to return it to someone else in the future. Ning Shu couldn't admire such magnanimity anymore. Moreover, Fu Yiji had left the courtyard and was heading straight here. What was he doing here? Miss, young Master Biao is here to see you. Dong Shui said happily. Young Master Biao had never come to see Mississippi. Ning Shu thought, good people don't come, but they don't come with good intentions. Ning Shu invited Fu Yiji in and made a cup of old tea. Fu Yiji wasn't here to drink tea, but he didn't know how to start. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. When the tea entered his mouth, it was quite astringent. It had an old taste and a bit of a moldy taste. Cousin, you don't have good tea. I have new tea at my place. Fu Yiji said. Ning Shu took a sip of tea. Thank you, cousin. Then he didn't say anything else. The atmosphere was a bit stiff. Fu Yiji tapped the teacup with his finger and hesitated for a moment before saying to Ning Shu, Cousin, I'm going to get married. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He immediately said, Congratulations, cousin. Because I'm still in mourning, I can't attend your wedding. Fu Yiji looked at Ning Shu. Cousin, there's something I need your help with. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. Cousin, tell me. As long as it's not against my principles, I'll definitely help. Fu Yiji was probably a little embarrassed. I am getting married, but the other party is a brothel girl. Ning Shu, start your performance. Ning Shu was stunned. Aunt would agree to you marrying a brothel girl? It's not allowed. That's why I'm asking for your help. Fu Yiji said. I'm afraid that only cousin can help with this matter. She was so important. Why did he think of her? Looking at Fu Yiji's glowing face, it seemed like his previous dejection was all fake. Ning Shu didn't say anything and just looked at him. Fu Yiji said, Cousin rarely comes out. No one in the capital knows her. I'm borrowing her identity. Ning Shu directly spat out the tea in his mouth onto Fu Yiji's face. He hurriedly took out a handkerchief to wipe his face. He said apologetically, Sorry, I was too agitated. I don't really understand what cousin means. What do you mean by borrowing my identity? Ning Shu's heart was cold. What the hell? Borrowing her identity, the third princess would get married as an orphan staying in the Marquis's household. When the male lead returns, then the third princess would have to recover her identity. How would she recover her identity? Naturally, it would be to make the fake identity disappear. That's a pretty good idea. But she would be dead and there would be no Shao Kaishan in this world. She would become a nameless person? Fu Yiji had never been spat on in the face before. He couldn't help but wipe his face. He said to Ning Shu, Cousin, I have no choice but to borrow your identity. When the time comes, I'll return it to you. Ning Shu was speechless. How would he return it? Her name got married and then she died. For the third princess, Fu Yizhi was really racking his brains. Ning Shu frowned and looked like he was about to cry. Cousin, how can you borrow her identity and name? Her body, hair, skin, and name were all bestowed by her parents. How can Kai Shan be so unfilial and get married during the mourning period? Cousin, you can't. Ning Shu shook his head like a rattledrum. I can't help you with this matter. As for the mourning period, this matter is very easy to solve. Kai Shan, cousin needs your help. Fu Yizhi frowned. He didn't expect his cousin to refuse. Brothel girl was just an excuse. Fu Yizhi obviously didn't want the third princess to be known by others because of this identity. His cousin was the most suitable candidate. She didn't have many connections and didn't know many people. Other than the people in the Ho Fu, she didn't know anyone else. When the time came, he would say that he was going to marry his cousin, but the person who would marry would be someone else. One person substituted for another. Perhaps his cousin would have to suffer a little and temporarily leave the Ho Fu. Ning Shu's heart turned cold. After connecting all the clues together, Ning Shu felt that he had touched upon the truth. The person who entrusted it, Xiao Kai Shan, agreed to marry Fu Yizhi and successfully stayed in the Ho Fu. As for her life after marriage, it was probably the same. Her husband was cold. The relationship between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was probably not that good. After all, the Ho Fu's wife felt that an orphan was not worthy of her son. According to the time, perhaps not long after the marriage, something happened to the third prince. Fu Yizhi still brought the third princess back to the Ho Fu. She successfully replaced the person who entrusted it and became Fu Yizhi's wife. There was already one Xiao Kai Shan. It was impossible to have two at the same time. Xiao Kai Shan would definitely be sent away. As for whether she was coaxed away by the people of the Ho Fu or forcefully taken away, the person who entrusted it couldn't stay in the Ho Fu. Her identity was temporarily taken by the third princess. As for the third marquis, he was destined to return and become the emperor. At that time, Xiao Kai Shan died, and the third princess consort brought the child back to the third marquis. Fu Yizhi was very sad about his wife's death. Facing his so-called dead wife's memorial tablet, he was very sad and affectionate, and then reminisced about the good times with his wife. Ning Shu was speechless. You're dead, aren't you surprised? She was originally the Ho Fu's wife, but now she was a dead person. Even if she came to the Ho Fu to make trouble, she would probably be beaten to death. At that time, Xiao Kai Shan would return and take the position of the Ho Fu's wife. For Fu Yizhi it would be hard to accept. How would such a woman with no status and no clan live? He didn't know what happened later, but he guessed that she died young. Ning Shu looked at Fu Yizhi's eyes with a cold light. He grinned and said, Cousin, even if she's a brothel girl, as long as you love each other, it doesn't matter. The eyes of the world won't affect your love. If he wasn't afraid of being implicated, Ning Shu wanted to run out and shout that the third princess was in the Ho Fu. /BK. Chapter 3058. A Secular View. This was not a problem with the secular world, but with the identity of the third princess. It was safer to use the identity of an orphan than a brothel girl. Moreover, this identity could be easily found out. Although she was an orphan, she had a family. It was very safe. Most importantly, she did not know anyone in the capital. Her family was far away from the capital. Fu Yizhi said, I don't want her to be criticized because of her identity. Ning Shu said lightly, that woman used my identity. Then what identity should I use? Should I use the identity of a brothel girl? Although I'm an orphan, I'm not an ordinary person. I'm a member of a clan. My father was once an official of the imperial court. Ning Shu tilted her head and looked at Fu Yizhi. Cousin. In the end, he felt that she was an orphan and her identity was not very noble. Using your identity was already an honor. Fu Yizhi narrowed his eyes. She had no parents and no relatives. Such an identity was indeed not very good. Moreover, she was living under someone else's roof. When a woman was at home, she relied on her parents for glory. When she married, her husband would be honored. Xiao Kai Shan had no parents and was not married. Her identity was not very good, but it was suitable. Fu Yiji wanted to drink tea, but the tea did not taste good. He put down the teacup and said to Ning Shu, "I just want to borrow your identity. I can promise you anything you want." Ning Shu drank the bitter tea and said, "Since you are borrowing it, why do you want to return it?" Revolting wasn't something that could be done in a few months. Ning Shu did not know the plot. She did not know when the third prince would return to his hometown in glory and sit on the throne of the emperor. He also did not know when he would borrow it. "How long can I borrow it?" Fu Yiji didn't know when he would borrow it. "If you get married, it will be a matter of a lifetime. Then this woman will have to use my name for the rest of her life." "Cousin, aren't you being too much of a bully?" Fu Yiji took a deep breath and said, "Not forever." "How long would that be? 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? Ning Shu countered. The person who had entrusted him would probably want to live outside the Marquis's manor. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years if he couldn't return to the Marquis's estate, he didn't know what kind of identity he would have to continue living. This was not the most difficult part. Once the third princess returned to her identity and Xiao Kaishan died, then what identity would the client have to return to the Marquis's mansion? That was the most difficult time. The Marquis had died, and Fu Yiji had missed his wife, the third princess, while Xiao Kaishan had disappeared from the world. The client was stripped of his identity and became a person without status. This was really interesting. Even if you're handsome, I won't help you. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't know if Fu Yiji would kill her and replace her. Ning Shu patted his chest. "Oh my God, I'm so scared. In the past, it was always the male lead who opposed me. Now it's the supporting male lead? You can't afford to offend an affectionate man." Fu Yiji said, "Cousin, this won't take long. Believe me, I'll give you whatever compensation you want." Ning Shu looked at his fingernails and said lightly, "Then what do I need to do?" Fu Yiji said, "Then I'll have to trouble you to leave the Marquis's estate for a period of time. Of course, I've already arranged a place for you to live." Ning Shu laughed. "Very thoughtful. Cousin, what if I don't agree?" Ning Shu looked at Fu Yiji with a smile. "And from what you said, it seems that you'll be divorced soon after you get married. Otherwise, why would you only borrow her for a period of time?" Fu Yiji. "Very sharp. But I don't want to care about your matters. I only know that I can't live without a name. How can I live without an identity?" In ancient times, there were many people who didn't have an identity. But Ning Shu didn't want to become that kind of person. Although she was an orphan, at least her clan was powerful. Speaking of which, she was still a rich young lady. "Why should I let you take advantage of me? I'll give you the identity of the female lead." The female lead wouldn't care how this identity came about. She probably wouldn't think about it. She wasn't really married to Fu Yiji. She didn't care about her identity at all. As long as it wasn't the identity of the third princess, it was fine. Ning Shu's heart was boiling. Sigh, a child without a mother or father was like a blade of grass, especially an orphan living under someone else's roof. Fu Yiji said, "Cousin, I can compensate you by borrowing your identity. When the time comes, I'll give you a rich dowry. I don't even have a marriage partner now. It's too early to talk about dowry." And this promise was too vague. Ning Shu didn't believe it. Of course, Ning Shu wouldn't open her mouth to suspect the female lead's identity. Once she revealed any suspicions, the female lead might just kill her and take advantage of her identity. Fu Yiji probably also felt that his promise wasn't very good. He added, "As long as you tell me what you want, I can satisfy you." Ning Shu said, "Since you're using my identity, then give me another identity." Fu Yiji. "Cousin, you mean?" Fu Yiji hadn't encountered a situation where he had to abandon his name and identity. Once he abandoned his identity, it meant that he was abandoned by his clan. The ancient people attached great importance to their clan and family. Once something happened, they would implicate the entire clan. Even creatures like friends were included within the scope of the clan. Ning Shu said with some distress, "I'm just an orphan living under someone else's roof. If I don't agree, I'll seem like an ungrateful person. But without an identity, how can I live?" Moreover, you're married under my name. You're going to live together for the rest of your life. Can't I be called Xiao Kaishan for the rest of my life? Instead of waiting for the name to be returned, it was better to create a new identity and start from scratch. Moreover, it would be under a more prominent clan. However, it would be easy to be implicated. What if these big shots weren't satisfied with the glory and wealth in front of them and chose to pursue higher power and wealth? Of course, she could also set up her own clan. Although it was a little poor, she didn't have to worry about being implicated because of other people's affairs. Fu Yizhi said, "Then what identity does cousin want?" Ning Shu told him her identity. She planned to still use the surname Xiao, but with the same pronunciation. On the death anniversary of their parents, they would still worship their parents' children. In ancient times, there were countless people who concealed their identity. After all, it wasn't like modern times where one needed an identity card to get a room. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't want to have anything to do with the Marquis's mansion. Fu Yizhi breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he made sense. He ran over excitedly. Only then did he think that when the prince returned, the princess would return to the prince's side. Then he would be considered married to his cousin. After their identities were changed, his cousin would become his wife. Fu Yizhi felt that he might not be able to bear it. Chapter 3059. He could not accept his wife suddenly changing into another person, nor could he accept his wife changing into another person. Therefore, the best way was to let his cousin leave and change her appearance. Fu Yizhi, who had achieved his wish, was very happy and generous. He said, "Cousin, do you have any other requests? Since you want to live alone, how much money do you need?" Ning Shu only said, "No need, my parents left me some money, it's enough if I spend it sparingly. I'll have to trouble cousin to take care of me for the past year." "You're my aunt's daughter, your family," Ning Shu said. After achieving his wish, he gave her some benefits and then said she was family. After the client got married, something happened to the third Marquis. Even if the client wanted to stay in the Marquis's estate, she did not have any fate with it. Even if she got married to Fu Yizhi and used this method to stay in the Marquis's estate, when the third princess came, she still had to move and leave the Marquis's estate. Therefore, there was no need to force yourself to stay in a place that was not fated. The world was big, there would always be a place to settle down. With martial arts, there was no need to be afraid of being bullied. "Then cousin, when will you leave the Marquis's estate?" Fu Yizhi asked. Ning Shu smiled. "That will have to wait until you give me a new identity. I want to be independent. Since your wife used my identity, then I'm a new person." According to the genealogy, Xiao Kaishan was married to Fu Yizhi. If something happened to Xiao Kaishan in the future and she died of an illness, then Xiao Kaishan would be dead. Fu Yizhi nodded and said, "Then I'll be quick." Ning Shu grunted, "Cousin, take care. I can't walk now, so I won't send you off." Fu Yizhi did not care. He knew that the other party was unhappy. If one day he was stripped of his identity as the Marquis Fu Yizhi, he would also be unhappy. But there were differences in identity. The Marquis was not the same as the Imperial Prince. You are allowed to have emotions, but there is really nothing to complain about. This is the way the world is. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on the person he loved. Just because the other party was a descendant of an imperial family and he was just a young Marquis, even if he inherited the title in the future, he wouldn't be able to compare to those princes and imperial grandsons. Fu Yizhi told his cousin to have a good rest and left. Seeing that Fu Yizhi had gone far away, Dong Shui walked into the room and asked Ning Shu, "Miss, what did young master say to you? He talked for so long." Dong Shui didn't hear much from outside the house. She only heard the word marriage and identity. Suddenly, she became excited. "Miss, is young master going to marry you?" "Yes." Ning Shu nodded. He was indeed going to marry Xiao Kaishan. Dong Shui clutched her chest and widened her eyes, looking like she couldn't react. "Really? Really?" Dong Shui paced back and forth. "Then Miss can stay in the Marquis's mansion. That's great, Miss can finally enjoy the good times." Ning Shu shook her head. "No, we have to pack up and prepare to leave the Marquis's mansion. Ah. Dong Shui was stunned. What was this? They were going to get married? Why did they have to leave the Marquis' mansion? Ning Shu explained the ins and outs of the matter clearly. Hearing this, Dong Shui's face turned pale and her body was on the verge of collapsing. Miss, what is this? How can you use your status as a miss to gild gold for a flower girl? Shut up. Since father and mother passed away, you are no longer a Mississippi. Take a new identity and start afresh. In the future, Miss can support you. Ning Shu said lightly. No, Dong Shui doesn't want Miss to support her. It's just that Miss has suffered. If it was Master and Madam's child, Miss wouldn't have to suffer like this. She even had her identity taken away. Young Master is using threats and promises. Dong Shui was indignant. What Dong Shui couldn't stand the most was, why would young Master rather marry a flower girl than a miss? A brothel girl was a lowly person with a lowly status. Her miss couldn't marry into the royal family, but her status was still better than a brothel girl. Ning Shu only said, this is probably true love. Dong Shui was stunned and couldn't say anything to refute. She was so angry that she pounded her chest and exploded. When we go out, we can eat whatever we want. We don't have to worry about the Marquis' mansion. We can eat leftovers every day. Isn't that great? Ning Shu said to Dong Shui. Although they were master and servant, the two of them depended on each other. Xiao Kaishan brought Dong Shui to his uncle's house to seek refuge. It was probably because she had a good relationship with Dong Shui. Moreover, the client's family was scattered, but Dong Shui was still by the client's side. She should be someone who could be trusted. It was likely that the master and servant didn't want to drift, so they married Fu Yiji and stayed in the Marquis' mansion. It was so strange. The more one wanted to hold on to something, the harder it was to hold on to it. It was just that they didn't know how the client died. Dong Shui was still angry, but she didn't dare to shout at the master's house. She was just a servant, and it was normal for her to be killed. Although some families liked to have a good reputation and wouldn't easily kill their servants, some families didn't care too much. If they killed someone, then so be it. The helpless Dong Shui was tearing up. She was a little afraid of the outside world. Ning Shu said to Dong Shui, don't be afraid. I can support you. I won't let you starve. This servant is not afraid. I'm just afraid that Miss won't be able to adapt. Miss has never suffered before. Ning Shu just let Dong Shui pack up her things, and then he counted the assets. Including the money left by his parents, part of it was the dowry of the client's mother. It was almost used up, but the money was enough for a lifetime. Of course, she couldn't wear brocade clothes. She had a group of servants, otherwise this money wouldn't be enough. It was enough for her to live a normal life. She could also make a small business to live a comfortable life. When Dong Shui packed up her things, she was so angry that she almost tore her clothes. Ning Shu hurriedly persuaded, don't tear it. It's not easy to buy this kind of cloth. The people in the Marquis' mansion would definitely wear clothes made of good cloth. In order to show their kindness to this orphan girl, they would give her 2 sets of clothes every season. To be honest, Ning Shu felt that 2 sets of clothes were not much. She would change 1 set a day and wear the 2 sets back and forth. But the client had her own clothes, so she didn't expect to wear these 2 sets of clothes. A proper miss of the Marquis' mansion would have 4 sets of clothes. When attending banquets, they would sew extra clothes. Dong Shui's eyes suddenly turned red. Miss, don't say that. This servant's heart is uncomfortable. Ning Shu, I just want to increase my income and reduce my expenses. Hurry up and pack. Ning Shu said to Dong Shui. Dong Shui made an oath sound. She almost took the tables and chairs away. Fu Yiji's actions were quite fast. In just a few days, he got the new identity that Ning Shu wanted. It was easy to get things done when there were people in the imperial court. Fu Yiji said, because you are an orphan girl, it's not good for you to appear out of nowhere. So you are under the name of a couple. But this couple has already passed away, so no one can find anything. Chapter 3060. Actually, Fu Yiji's brain, as long as he was not facing the female lead, was still quite clear. He had the brain of an heir. But once the hormones took control of the brain, sometimes the things he did were more crazy. But being crazy for love did not seem to be despised. Once it was love, everything was beautiful and worthy of forgiveness. Because of love. Ning Shu grunted and took the identity document. Then thank you, cousin. Ning Shu flipped the identity document over and over again. After confirming that it was real and not fake, he asked, "Do you need me to save mother and say goodbye to grandmother?" Fu Yiji said, "Since you have a new identity, then they are no longer your relatives. There is no need to say goodbye. You can leave from the back door. I have made arrangements, no one will see." Ning Shu did not have any feelings for the people in the house of the Marquis, and would not be hurt by Fu Yiji's words. To be honest, an orphan living under someone else's roof, being careful and trembling with fear, would not feel any familial affection. Ning Shu let Dong Shui take the package. They were about to leave. Dong Shui snorted and followed Ning Shu to the back door. Dong Shui's face turned green. She had to leave through the back door. She could not even leave through the main door. Fu Yiji sent Ning Shu to the back door and said, "Cousin, live well." Then he closed the door. Dong Shui was flabbergasted. Her eyes turned red. How can you be so heartless? Now Fu Yiji was anxious to marry the third princess, even if it was a fake marriage. Ning Shu curled his lips and said to Dong Shui, "Don't look, let's go." Mississippi. Dong Shui felt wronged. What should we do now? Find a place to stay. Do you want to sleep on the streets? Ning Shu took a package from Dong Shui. Oh, Dong Shui replied. Looking at the people coming and going on the street, she was a little confused. She didn't know where home was. "Miss Biao." A male voice sounded surprised. Ning Shu turned around and saw a young man holding several books in his hands. They weren't dressed too well, but they were still dressed better than ordinary scholars. "Young Master Qi." Dong Shui hurriedly bowed. When Fu Hongqi saw Ning Shu and his servant carrying several bags, he quickly asked, "Where are you going?" There were many people in the Marquis's mansion. Other than the Marquis, there were a few other branches that lived in the Marquis's mansion. Fu Hongqi was the son of the third branch. His father was not the old madam's biological son, but the son of a concubine. Naturally, he couldn't inherit the title. Dong Shui was just about to speak when Ning Shu spoke first. "I want to leave the Marquis's estate." "But what happened?" "Eldest uncle allowed you to leave, and old madam also agreed." Fu Hongqi frowned. "Old madam is reluctant to let you out. She was old madam's biological granddaughter. How could old madam bear to let her granddaughter suffer outside?" "Did you suffer some grievances in the Marquis's estate? Tell eldest uncle will make a decision for you. Did the servants in the estate give you a hard time?" When Dong Shui heard this, she felt even more wronged. Just as she was about to speak, she was interrupted by Ning Shu. "It's nothing. I just want to leave the Marquis's estate. I don't want to stay in the Marquis's estate. After all, I'm an outsider in the Marquis's estate. I don't feel comfortable. It's better to live outside." Fu Hongqi frowned. "It's hard for a woman to live outside. You should go back. I'll accompany you to tell old madam." Old madam didn't like concubines. Moreover, they were the children of concubines. She only occasionally saw the concubines' daughters-in-law at family banquets. At other times, she didn't let them come. Fu Hongqi basically didn't go to the main courtyard. Dong Shui's eyes reddened. She suddenly felt that young Master Qi was much more humane than young Master Biao. And young Master Biao was such a bully. Ning Shu smiled faintly. He once again interrupted Dong Shui's words and said, "No need. Goodbye, cousin Qi." If he went back now, Fu Yiji would probably tear him apart. Success was right in front of him. He wouldn't allow anyone to ruin it. Ning Shu bowed and left. Fu Hongqi quickly reached out to stop Ning Shu. Fu Hongqi's body moved faster than his brain. He reached out to stop Ning Shu. Seeing the others staring at him, he realized that he had acted rashly and immediately retracted his hand. He looked flustered and stuttered a little. "You're a rich young miss. You're unfamiliar with the people and the place. How are you going to live?" This time, Dong Shui was afraid that her young miss would steal the conversation and immediately said, "Yes. How was she going to live? Her heart was panicking. Ning Shu was very calm and indifferent. I already have a plan. Thank you for your concern, Cousin Qi. Why do you suddenly want to leave the Marquis' estate? Fu Hongqi asked. Because I'm not happy. But don't tell anyone that you saw me leave. But Fu Hongqi asked again. Ning Shu wanted to roll his eyes. You have 100,000 Ys. Ning Shu said, Cousin Qi, if you don't let me go, I'm going to shout molestation. Fu Hongqi almost jumped up. He stared at Ning Shu dumbfoundedly. Ning Shu directly walked past him. This time, Fu Hongqi didn't dare to stop him. He was a little afraid that Ning Shu would really shout molestation. Ning Shu turned back to look at Fu Hongqi, who was scratching his head. Originally, he wanted to report that the third princess consort was in the Marquis' mansion after leaving the Marquis' mansion. Moreover, he was planning to marry the third princess consort. Even if the third princess consort had committed a crime, the third princess consort was still the daughter-in-law on the imperial jade disc. And she was the daughter-in-law of a traitor. It was enough to make Fu Yiji suffer. But there were still many people in the manor who didn't know. They didn't know anything. Even if they didn't know and didn't participate, they would be implicated. Someone like Fu Hongqi. So, he had to think of another way. You painstakingly wanted to get married, but in the end, you fell short. Even a fake one wouldn't let you achieve your wish and would torture you to death. If he reported it, too many people would be implicated. It was better to forget about it. Fu Hongqi still caught up with Ning Shu and asked, Do you have a place to stay? Ning Shu looked at him from the corner of his eyes. We're going to find an inn to stay in first. Fu Hongqi said, Then I'll go with you. It's easy for two women to get into trouble. Ning Shu didn't have any impression of Fu Hongqi. He just shook his head and said, No need. It's okay, I'll help you. He snatched the parcels from Ning Shu's hands and took a few more parcels from Dong Shue's hands. He walked in front excitedly. Dong Shue asked Ning Shu, Young miss, what does young Master Qi mean by this? Ning Shu touched his face. The client didn't look bad. He probably liked the client. Maybe he was happy to help others. Don't be so smug. Ning Shu said, He's a scholar. He'll help when he sees injustice. Dong Shue said, But young Master Qi is a scholar. I heard that he's going to take the Xiuzai examination soon. How can he help? Melons, this was just a metaphor. Fu Hongqi found an inn and said to Ning Shu, This inn is not bad. It's quite safe. Ning Shu paid the accommodation fee. There was only one room. The two ladies could just squeeze in. Dong Shue agreed, but she felt wronged. Chapter 3061. Fu Hongqi took the package to the room, put it down and quickly went out of the room. He stood at the door and said, Miss, I think you should go back to the mansion. Ning Shu just said, No, you didn't see me today. Don't talk nonsense when you go back. How could a concubine's son argue with the young Marquis? Fu Hongqi would be at a disadvantage. Fu Hongqi was very confused. What happened? Thank you. Cousin Qi, you should go back to school. Ning Shu said to her. Fu Hongqi had no choice. Seeing that the other party didn't talk to him, he could only cup his hands and leave. Dong Shue closed the door and said to Ning Shu, Miss, what should we do next? We'll cross the bridge when we get there. Don't worry, your miss knows what to do. First, they had to deal with Fu Yiji's marriage. The other things could be dealt with later. I won't let you get married. Fu Hongqi returned to the mansion and went to ask the old madam why the young master moved out. The old madam was shocked. She didn't know about this at all. Fu Yiji heard the news and came back. He said, Grandson is preparing for my cousin's marriage. I'll send my cousin out and bring her back when it's time to pick her up. My cousin's house is a little far from the capital, so I plan to go around the capital to pick her up. He was going to marry Xiao Kaishan anyway. You're going to get married. Fu Hongqi asked, Even if you're going to get married, why don't you prepare for it? The old madam's expression was a bit suspicious, but she didn't say anything. Fu Yiji was her grandson. She wouldn't embarrass her grandson in front of outsiders. Fu Yiji said, This is what I discussed with my cousin. Fu Hongqi had nothing to say. He just cupped his hands and left. Xiao Kaishan left the mansion silently. Soon the Marquis and the Marquis's wife knew. The Marquis's face was ashen. He guessed a possibility. His face was even more ashen. Fu Yizhi nodded. It's exactly as you think, father. Just her identity as a brothel girl is not enough to keep her safe. So you stole the identity of your aunt's daughter. Master Ho wiped his face and said, "You're a devil." I was possessed. Fu Yizhi nodded and said, "If I had been a little braver at that time, I would not have regretted it for the rest of my life. There are plenty of women out there. Why do you insist on this one?" Master Ho's face was ugly. Doing this was like walking on a tightrope. He did not care much about the orphan girl. But once this matter was discovered, even if the whole family was not destroyed, it would slowly sink. Now the emperor was very angry. Fu Yizhi said, "The other women are not her. What's the point? And I promise that there won't be any problems with this matter." Master Ho couldn't take it anymore and slapped him across the face. "Promise? What promise do you have? You're gambling with all the heads of the whole manor. I'm going to hand her over. She can't stay in the whole manor." "Father." Fu Yizhi was shocked. Fu Yizhi didn't care about the slap before, but this sentence made Fu Yizhi kneel on the ground, looking frightened. "Father, you can't do this. If you hand her over, she will suffer a lot." Master Ho said coldly, "She is the third princess consort. When she was living a life of luxury, she couldn't even touch the edge of the Marquis's mansion. Since she was living a life of luxury, she should have thought of the day when she would lose it. If she suffers, why does she have to drag the entire Ho manor down with her? What does the Ho manor owe her? Because your son loves her. Moreover, the third prince will return sooner or later. Your son knows that you want the Marquis's mansion to be a little higher. Why don't you bet on the third prince? Father, the third prince is definitely someone worth following. Only with investment can you reap the rewards. Father, this is an opportunity." Fu Yizhi tried to persuade him. "Then you can hide her outside." Fu Yizhi said, "Father, you know that the search outside is very tight now." This time, the emperor was furious. Maybe he knew that this was not his son's doing, but he wanted to punish the chicken to warn the monkey. At the same time, none of these sons could escape. So recently, those princes were unlucky. Today, a prince was impeached and was scolded and punished by the emperor. Tomorrow, another prince was impeached and the emperor roared and must be punished. During this period, the number of officials who were disgraced increased. Now, the third princess was a hot potato. He hid his uneasiness and fear in his heart. If he handed her over, how should he explain? In short, Fu Yizhi decided to take the third princess back to the Ho manor without authorization, which was like planting a bomb in the Ho manor. He even changed his name and wanted to marry the third princess. What a ridiculous thing. Late at night, Ning Shu took advantage of the fact that Dong Shui was asleep. In order to prevent her from waking up in the middle of the night, Ning Shu also made some incense to make her feel better. Wearing dark clothes, in a hidden alley he climbed over the wall and stepped on the tiles, avoiding the patrolling officers and soldiers on the street, and arrived at the Ho manor. "Oh hee, I told you that I would be back." Ning Shu used his spiritual force to scan the third princess's room. Fu Yizhi did not live with her. Even if they were married, nothing would happen if they lived in the same room. Even if Fu Yizhi wanted to do something when he could not help himself, he would not succeed. You are just a supporting male lead. Even if you get her body, you can't get her heart, and you can't unlock more positions. Ning Shu avoided the guards of the Ho manor and groped his way to the third princess's room. There was a servant girl on night watch, lying on the table asleep. Ning Shu knocked the servant girl unconscious with a karate chop. Then, she walked to the side of the bed with the third princess consort's back facing her. Ning Shu then knocked the third princess consort out with a karate chop. The third princess consort was already asleep. Once she fainted, she did not make a sound. Ning Shu shook his hand. His hand hurt, so he picked up the third princess. Ning Shu originally wanted to carry the third princess away, but as soon as he carried her, his shoulder pressed against her stomach. The third princess is now a little pregnant, and her lower abdomen is only slightly protruding, but once it presses against her stomach, something will definitely happen. Ning Shu can only princess carry and slip away. Carrying the third princess, he went to the third prince's mansion. This place was often patrolled, and soon the third princess was found. If she was discovered, Fu Yizhi didn't believe that he could snatch her back. Ning Shu put the third princess down, leaned against the wall, and then directly returned to the inn. Thinking about it, using this method to get the third princess away, it will not implicate the people in the home manor who do not know. The third princess is not, let's see who you marry, you will be anxious to death, go trembling in fear, go guess. Moreover, even if the third princess is caught, nothing will happen for the time being. The third princess has a child in her stomach. The emperor will not kill women and children, especially his grandson. Moreover, with his wife in the capital, the third prince can also walk into the trap. Doesn't the third prince dote on his wife like his life? Moreover, even if he wants to do something, he has a hostage in his hands. When he did it, he couldn't go all out. Without a target, it was good to give him a target. In the morning the dew dripped, and the air was fresh. After a night of peace, the Marquis's estate began to become restless. There were all kinds of voices, and the sound of shouting outside the estate. There were people selling breakfast on the streets, starting a day of prosperity. As if nothing had happened. Fu Yizhi personally instructed the small kitchen to prepare a nutritious breakfast. Ever since the third princess consort was pregnant, her appetite had been poor. It was not easy for the prince to have an accident after the pregnancy reaction ended. The third princess's liver was depressed, and she was in a state of worry all day. In order to let the third princess eat well, and also for the child in her belly, Fu Yizhi personally came to the small kitchen to prepare. Pregnant women's tastes were more tricky. Even she herself didn't know what she wanted to eat, so it had to be tasty and nutritious. A gentleman stayed away from the kitchen, not to mention someone of Fu Yizhi's status. But when he did this, the small kitchen was in a mess. Fu Yizhi didn't know how to cook, but he would stare at it. One moment he would do this, and the next moment he wanted it to be perfect. The kitchen maids were so busy that they wanted to fuck a dog. Just for breakfast alone, there were more than 10 dishes, and they were all very particular. But if it was done well, Fu Yizhi was very generous. If the third princess liked to eat a dish, he would reward the chef who made that dish, and it wasn't a small sum. So these people were fucking a dog in their hearts, but they were also preparing with all their might, showing their determination to win. But no one could be sure about a pregnant woman's taste. She might like it today, but not tomorrow. Usually, for 3 meals a day, these kitchen maids worked very hard. Usually, they had to get up before dawn to prepare, and even in the middle of the night to think about what to prepare. Fu Yizhi saw that breakfast was almost ready, so he went to the third princess's room to call her. Fu Yizhi knocked for a while, but no one opened the door. The pregnant third princess was always sleepy, and her mental strength wasn't very good. But why didn't the maid who was on night duty come to open the door? Fu Yizhi's expression changed, and he directly kicked the door open. He saw the maid lying on the table, sleeping soundly. It was already dawn, but the maid was still sleeping. Fu Yizhi looked into the room and saw that there was no one on the bed. His face turned pale, and his body staggered. He almost couldn't support himself and fell to the ground. Fu Yizhi kicked the maid. Fu Yizhi had always been an elegant gentleman, but this was the first time he was so flustered and exasperated, and his kick was very fierce. He directly threw the maid to the ground. Because of the pain, the maid woke up and her face was blank. Seeing the young Marquis's fierce and bloodthirsty eyes staring at her, she immediately quivered. Young master? The maid hurriedly knelt on the ground, not understanding what had happened. But the master was so angry, it was definitely not wrong to admit her mistake at the first moment. Fu Yizhi gritted his teeth. Where is she? You were on night duty, and you even lost her? Without marriage, Fu Yizhi naturally wouldn't sleep with the third princess. He respected the third princess very much, and loved and respected her. But he didn't expect that she would disappear just like that. Fu Yiji's scalp exploded, and his mind was in a mess. He didn't know how the third princess was, where she was, and what she encountered. Just thinking about it, Fu Yiji's mind went blank, and he didn't dare to not think about her situation. The maid was incomparably shocked, and then incomparably frightened. I don't know. I was clearly guarding the young miss, but I didn't know that the young miss would disappear just like that. Fu Yiji rubbed his forehead. The third princess had suddenly disappeared. Was the person who took her an enemy or a friend? Fu Yiji also knew that this maid had been sneak attacked, but he still couldn't help but scold her as an idiot and kicked her body. The maid fell to the ground, not daring to resist. She only trembled on the ground and didn't say anything. Fu Yiji wouldn't waste time on a maid, and after thinking about it, he directly went to a concubine's courtyard. Young master and concubine haven't woken up yet. The maid stopped Fu Yiji, who was rushing into the room. Fu Yiji was burning with anxiety. In one night, a living person had disappeared for no reason. Chapter 3063. It was silent and did not alarm anyone. At least, no one in the manor noticed. There were guards in the manor. Not everyone could enter the manor. If it was not someone outside, then it must be someone inside. Father did not agree to keep the third princess in the manor, so he took her away. Only Father knew that it was the third princess. The marquise and the old madam thought it was a prostitute. So, it was very likely that Master Ho took her away. Get out of my way. Fu Yiji directly kicked the servant girl away. Right now, anyone who stood in his way would not have a good ending. In the room, a concubine was tidying up Master Ho's clothes. Fu Yiji just barged in. Fortunately, he had gotten up and dressed. If not, it would be very awkward. Master Ho could not only have Marquise as his only woman. He also had concubines. It was normal for him to sleep in the concubine's room. Master Ho's face was cold. What is this? Even if it was just a concubine, there was a difference between men and women. Moreover, she was Fu Yiji's elder. How could she barge in like this? You have studied so much. It was not easy to have a break, and he did not have to go to court early. However, his son barged in without any reason and looked secretive. Master Ho was very disappointed with his son recently. He was using up the good impression and ability he had accumulated before. If it was not because Fu Yiji was very outstanding and famous in the past, he would not be so lenient. He was called a young talent, good-looking, and a legitimate son. He had a good hand, but now it seemed that he was playing worse and worse. Master Ho did not want to give up his legitimate son unless it was a last resort. In the future, the title would definitely be given to his legitimate son. Fu Yiji saw that the concubine was present. He held back and said, "Father, I have something to say to you. It is very important." Master Ho left the concubine's courtyard and went to the study. Fu Yiji immediately said anxiously, "Father, the princess is missing." Missing? How could she be missing? Master Ho frowned. Would this woman's disappearance bring disaster to the manor? Moreover, who was it that took it away? Would they report it to the Marquis' estate? Or was there someone monitoring the Marquis' estate? They hadn't even gotten married, yet something like this had already happened. It made people tremble with fear. They felt as if there was a head hanging over their heads, but they didn't know where it came from. Fu Yiji's eyes were red as he asked, "Father, did you hide her?" Master Ho was speechless. Master Ho denied it flatly. He wasn't the one who took her away. Since she didn't disturb the mansion, maybe it was the third prince's men who took her away. Now Master Ho only hoped that it was the third prince's men, not someone else. Now that someone else had something on him, it was quite a terrible thing. Now, she was just a brainless person, yet she was suspecting that he had taken her away. Damn it, stupid as a pig. Fu Yiji was now in a state of confusion due to his concern. He did not make any sound, and did not leave behind any words. Fu Yiji became even more worried, thinking that something bad had happened to her. "Father, only you have the ability to disappear from the manor without a sound." Fu Yiji looked stubbornly at Master Ho. His heart was frying. He was about to marry the princess, even if it was fake. Everything was ready. They were just short of getting married. But now she was gone. He was just short of having her. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Fu Yiji was extremely upset. He hated himself for not guarding her. He thought that she would be out of danger when she arrived at the manor. But he didn't expect that the people in the manor were even more dangerous. Because the third prince was now a rebel, no one dared to approach him for fear of implicating the manor and its wealth. And there were so many people in the manor. Bastard, instead of asking me for her, you might as well go out and ask around. Master Ho rubbed his eyebrows. Children were all debts. Ever since Fu Yiji was young, he didn't need the adults to worry about him when it came to studying. However, love was something that drove him crazy. The manor sent some spies and went out to drink tea with colleagues. Soon the news spread that the third princess had been caught. As for how she was caught, it seemed that the third princess returned to the manor and fainted in front of the manor. She was discovered by the patrolling guards. Such a dramatic discovery. But Master Ho was relieved that the manor wasn't implicated. But just as he was relieved, it was brought up again. The third princess was originally in the manor. Why was she in front of the manor in a coma? It was obvious that she was knocked out and brought to the manor. She was discovered on purpose. Then who was it? Master Ho wanted to curse. What the hell? Would someone appear to accuse the manor of harboring a fugitive? Fu Yiji knew that the princess was caught. His heart ached. He looked at his father with an inexplicable gaze. Father, did you do this? Let the princess appear in the manor and be discovered. This way, the manor wouldn't be implicated. Father, why didn't you tell me? Master Ho, he didn't want to talk to this retard anymore. Why did he insist that he was the one who took her away? Master Ho was so wrong that he wanted to beat this son of a bitch to death. Don't stare at me with eyes that are worse than death. You treat a little admiration as a great thing in life. You also treat everyone around you as bad people who want to break up your love. Fu Yiji wanted to see the third princess, but Master Ho tied him up and locked him in a small dark room. He hung the portrait in front of Fu Yiji and made him look at his lover every day. He only gave him one meal a day, a tattered quilt, and an unknown stench and musty smell. Fu Yiji's life was too smooth. He was the young marquis. When the time was right, he would inherit the title of marquis. He lived a life of luxury and opened his mouth to eat and stretched out his hands to wear clothes. Now that he didn't get a response from a woman, he was particularly persistent. If he was still so stubborn, Master Ho felt that he could give up this son. As for the third princess, Fu Yiji didn't care about the interests of Ho's mansion at all. Ho's mansion was in danger now. Someone sneaked into Ho's mansion and took the third princess away. It meant that someone was watching Ho's mansion. Master Ho felt a chill in his heart. Maybe it was the emperor's secret guard who was secretly observing everywhere in the capital. Fu Yiji's behavior was transparent in the eyes of others. Master Ho's brain was about to explode. This troublesome son of his still said that he took the woman away. Where was his brain? Like a madman, he pulled him apart. He directly locked him up. Out of sight, out of mind. His son was unreliable, so he could only rely on himself. He secretly inquired about the princess to make sure that Ho's mansion would not be implicated. Fu Yiji was locked in a dark room. There was not even a candle. There were 2 glazed tiles above his head. During the day, sunlight could come in. But at night there was no light. It was as dark as it was outside. Fu Yiji wanted to sleep, but he had to wrap himself in a quilt. The quilt seemed to be a little damp. It was very uncomfortable to sleep on it. Chapter 3064. In the past, his quilt and clothes had incense. After he washed them clean, the incense would be sent to his room. Lying on the bed was very comfortable and he missed it. Moreover, there was only a quilt and no pillow. He could not sleep at night. He had never suffered like this before. Fu Yiji rubbed his stomach. He was given 1 meal a day and the taste was not very good. It was not a delicate dish. Rice in soup was actually not bad. But for Fu Yiji, It was very difficult to endure. On one hand, he was worried about the third princess. On the other hand, he was shouting to go out. But no one paid attention to him. Now he was no longer the high and mighty young marquis. Those servants also did not listen to him. Generally, people would first satisfy their material needs. Eat, drink, go to the toilet and sleep. Then they would pursue spiritual pleasures. Only when they were full and warm would they think about sex. Now Fu Yizhi wanted to leave. The marquise did not understand how the relationship between the father and son became like this. Fu Yizhi was locked up. The marquise's position as the legal wife was stable. Half of the time, it was because of her family and her son. No one could compete with her for the position of the marquise woman. Those concubines and concubines were all well-behaved and did not dare to speak up. But recently, the situation in the marquise mansion changed. Fu Yizhi was locked up. Obviously, he had angered the marquis. Moreover, the marquis was angry and did not go to the marquise's courtyard. Now was a good opportunity. Those concubines and concubines were a bit noisy. They took the opportunity to pull the marquis to their courtyard. The marquis was in a bad mood. Every time he came to the concubines' room, he would reward them with some toys. It was enough to make the concubines happy. The marquise's heart was full of hatred but also disdain. In the end, it was just a toy. Being rewarded like a servant and still so happy. The marquise had been in charge of the inner residence for a long time. She knew that if the east wind was not suppressing the west wind, then the west wind was suppressing the east wind. There were concubines who were firmly suppressed by the legal wife. There were also legal wives who were trampled on by the concubines. Moreover, the marquise understood that her husband was doing it on purpose. Because of Fu Yizhi, he was angry with her. The marquise was mentally and physically exhausted. Ever since her son fell in love with Minister Qin's daughter, it was as if he was repaying a debt. What exactly did he owe that woman? Now that she was married, her son was actually going to be a widow for the rest of his life. He was the young marquis and would be a marquis in the future. How could he inherit the title of marquis without an heir? It wasn't easy for him to get married, but he ended up marrying a brothel girl. He didn't know what happened, but the woman suddenly left. The conflict between her husband and son was definitely because of that woman from the Qin Tower. If this continued, there would be no place for them in the marquis's estate. The marquise went to the door of the solitary confinement room and talked to Fu Yizhi, who was bored to death. There were 4 walls. There were no books. There was nothing. Fu Yizhi had to go from day to night, and then from night to day. It was a terrifying torture. The marquise tried her best to persuade her son not to be angry with his father. She also told him about the recent situation in the marquis household. Your father likes concubine Zhou's son and wants him to be the top scorer in the imperial examinations. Your title will be taken away by someone else. Fu Yizhi didn't believe such words, but his heart was very angry. Since he was young, he was the young marquis. For Fu Yizhi, inheriting the title was a matter of course. Now that he suddenly had to give his title to someone else, Fu Yizhi found it hard to accept. What originally belonged to him, what should have belonged to him? How could it be taken away by someone else? When he had it, he didn't feel anything. But when it was taken away, it was incomparably painful. If you want to destroy a person, it is to take back everything that was given unconditionally. No, I am the legitimate son of the marquis's estate. How could my father give the title to a bastard? Fu Yizhi refused to believe this matter. Whether you are the legitimate son or not depends on your father's words. In the future, when it is under my name, you will be the legitimate son. Moreover, there is a precedent of a bastard inheriting the title. The marquise was mentally and physically exhausted. Fu Yizhi made a fuss and wanted to go out. The marquise went to the marquise to talk to the marquise. But the marquise refused. He said that Fu Yizhi was not calm and dared not let him out. He even bit his own father. If he was let out, who knows what kind of trouble he would cause. The marquis household can't afford to be tossed around anymore. The marquis was now frightened when he thought that someone came and took away the third princess. See, the marquise begged bitterly, but the marquise's face was indifferent. The marquise suffered a lot of grievances. Her husband doted on those concubines and gave them face, but he didn't give her any face. Seeing her husband like this, she couldn't help but shout, why do you treat Iji like this? Then go back and ask your son what he did. The Marquise coldly said. Then tell me, what did he do? The Marquise was pestering endlessly. She had enough. Just because he brought back a prostitute? Don't you have prostitutes in your backyard too? You also play with prostitutes. Your son is just learning from you. You don't set an example, and you want your son to be obedient. The Marquise was full of resentment. The Marquise was too lazy to argue with her. You ask him yourself, don't ask me. The Marquis household was in chaos. Ning Shu and Dong Shui were living a good life. Now they needed to find a place to stay. They couldn't always stay in the inn. The land in the capital was very expensive, so were the houses. Ning Shu didn't plan to buy an expensive house. As long as it was in the city, it didn't matter even if it was a little remote. By the way, it was a house that could be used to make a living. No matter what kind of business it was, there must be a shop. The news that the third princess was caught spread quickly. It was estimated that they wanted the third prince to know and let him walk into the trap. They didn't know how painful Fu Yiji was now. Ning Shu strolled around the Marquis household and used his spiritual power to scan the Marquis household. When he found that Fu Yiji was locked up, he immediately laughed. In the family, everyone huddled together for warmth. When one person achieved the Tao, even his chickens and dogs would rise to heaven. But if something happened, they would also be implicated. It was not as simple as just enjoying life. The Marquise's uncle's mind was still clear. Now Fu Yiji's brain was controlled by a third leg. His brain was full of love, and it was best to lock him up. Fu Yiji cut a sorry figure. Not only was he handsome and suave, but he was also sore. He hadn't washed up and looked very sloppy. Young Mar, seeing that you are not living well, I feel much better. Dong Shui saw Ning Shu walk to the door of the Marquis household and said, Miss, do you want to go in? Do you want to go in and see the old madam? After all, blood was thicker than water. Ning Shu shook his head. No. She had disappeared for a few days. They should have found out, but they didn't send anyone to look for her. It could only be said that they chose Fu Yiji between Fu Yiji and her. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.